Why People Betray You. 8 Hidden Truths from Carl Jung. Modern Stoicism. Betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from those closest to you. A trusted friend turns distant. A partner walks away in silence. A colleague undercuts your work just when you needed support the most. And the hardest part? You didn't see it coming. But what if the signs were always there, just hidden in plain sight? In this video from Stoic Secrets, we'll uncover 8 hidden truths about betrayal, bridging the depth psychology of Carl Jung with modern Stoicism. This isn't just about spotting red flags. It's about gaining the wisdom to remain unshaken, no matter who turns against you. Because when you know the truth, betrayal loses its sting. Welcome to Stoic Secrets, where ancient wisdom meets modern clarity. Number 1. Shadow self and hidden resentment. Have you ever felt that sinking sensation in your chest? The one that comes when someone you trusted turns away from you? Maybe it was a friend who suddenly became distant, or a partner whose warm presence turned cold overnight. You ask yourself, what did I do wrong? But here's a Stoic secret you need to hear. Sometimes it's not about you at all. It's about them and the storm they're hiding inside. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." What if I told you that the betrayal you experienced wasn't just an act? It was a process that began deep within the other person's psyche long before it ever reached you. Carl Jung, one of the most influential minds in modern psychology, introduced a concept known as the shadow self, a hidden, unconscious part of us that holds all the traits we suppress, deny, or refuse to admit exist within us. It is made of our fears, our insecurities, our envy, and our unresolved pain. This is where betrayal often begins, not in the moment someone walks away or speaks behind your back, but in the silent accumulation of unspoken resentment. Have you ever noticed someone becoming more critical over time, pulling away without explanation? What if these were not just mood swings, but warning signs from the unconscious breaking through? Jung believed that when we don't confront our own darkness, we project it onto others, and in that projection, betrayal is born. Now, let's link this with Stoicism. The Stoics taught that our peace must not be tied to the behavior of others, but to our own virtue and clarity. Epictetus reminds us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. When betrayal strikes, the Stoic response is not panic or rage, it is curiosity. We ask, why did this person change? What pain are they carrying? And most importantly, what can I learn about myself in this moment? Because often we ignore early signs. We sense discomfort but label it as overthinking. We see distance growing but call it busyness. Here's a question for you. How often have you silenced your own intuition just to maintain the illusion of connection? This is where modern Stoicism gives us powerful tools. Instead of trying to control or fix others, we turn inward. We use our experiences, even painful ones, as opportunities to sharpen our perception and resilience. The Stoics didn't promise a life without betrayal, but they did teach us how to remain grounded when it happens. So ask yourself, when someone betrayed me, what emotions did I feel? And what truths did those emotions reveal about me? Because in that reflection lies your real power. Not the power to prevent every betrayal, but the power to never be broken by it. As you listen, I want you to remember this Stoic secret. People don't betray because of who you are, they betray because of parts of themselves they haven't faced, and in that truth is your freedom. You no longer need to take every loss personally. You no longer need to carry the weight of someone else's shadow. Instead, carry your own light. Practice discernment. Be kind but not blind. As Seneca advised, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality, and often the suffering of betrayal lingers because we replay it in our minds, attaching it to our self-worth. So here's my final question for you. What would it look like to become so grounded in your own self-awareness, so aligned with your values, that no betrayal could unseat your peace? That's not just philosophy, that's power. That's the path of the modern Stoic. And that, my friend, is a Stoic secret worth living by. Number 2, the manipulative mask. Sometimes betrayal doesn't sneak up on you from the shadows of the subconscious. It walks right through the front door, wearing a friendly smile. Not all betrayals are born from repressed emotions or unresolved trauma. Some are deliberate, strategic, and cold. This is what Carl Jung alluded to when he spoke of people wearing psychological masks, the personas we present to the world that often have little to do with who we really are. In this case, the manipulative mask is worn by someone who isn't just unaware of their inner world, they're weaponizing it. These individuals align themselves with your life, your energy, your kindness, but only while it serves their agenda. The moment your presence no longer benefits them, they begin to pull away. Not always abruptly, sometimes it's subtle, fewer texts, vague excuses, flattery turned critique, and before you even realize what's happening, you're no longer a friend, you're a resource that's being used and discarded. It reminds me of a story a listener once shared. She worked side by side with a colleague for years, always offering help, covering shifts, even supporting her emotionally through a rough breakup. One day, a big promotion opened up. Suddenly, this same colleague began spreading rumors, undermining her in meetings and taking credit for her work. The betrayal wasn't a slip, it was a strategy, and when she confronted her, she was met with indifference, as if the friendship was nothing more than a footnote in a game she was trying to win. It's a harsh reality, but one that resonates with Jung's insight. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. But some don't avoid their inner darkness. They just lean into it when it's convenient. So let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like someone's affection came with invisible conditions, like you had to keep earning their loyalty, or else risk losing it entirely? Modern Stoicism teaches us that our peace comes from recognizing what is truly within our control and what is not. As Stoics, we must learn to see clearly, not cynically. We must question whether someone's loyalty is built on shared values or merely shared benefits, and when the mask slips, as it always does, we are called not to retaliate, but to understand. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, when another blames you or hates you, or people voice similar criticisms, go to their souls, penetrate inside, and see what sort of people they are. You'll realize there is no need to be racked with anxiety that they hold any particular opinion about you. This is one of the most essential Stoic lessons. Not everyone in your circle is in your corner. People can and will present themselves as allies while harboring entirely different intentions. But here's the value you walk away with. You don't need to control who wears the mask. You just need to sharpen your ability to see through it. Pay attention to consistency. Observe how they treat others when no one is watching. And most importantly, never abandon your character for the sake of keeping someone else in your life. Stoicism doesn't ask us to isolate ourselves, but it does demand that we remain sovereign over our reactions, our values, and our peace. So next time you feel that sting of betrayal, ask yourself, Was this person ever really with me, or just with what I could offer? And what would it look like to walk through the world with open eyes and a steady heart, seeing masks not as threats, but as lessons in discernment? Let this be your Stoic secret today. Betrayal reveals character, both theirs and yours. Choose the one you want to keep. If this video resonated with you, please take a moment to comment below with the words, "I agree," to show your commitment to applying these Stoic principles in your life. Your agreement isn't just a comment, it's a personal declaration that you're ready to walk through life with clearer eyes and a stronger heart. Number 3. Jealousy and insecurity. Jealousy and insecurity, when left unchecked, can become silent saboteurs of human relationships, especially as we progress in life and strive for accomplishments. Carl Jung observed that people often project their inner darkness onto others, and in that projection lies the root of jealousy. When someone feels small in the shadow of your growth, they may unconsciously try to tear you down rather than lift themselves up. Jealousy doesn't always wear a clear face. It disguises itself in passive aggressiveness, backhanded praise, or emotional withdrawal. But beneath it all is a deep sense of personal inadequacy. This toxic brew can lead to betrayal, especially when someone believes that harming you will restore their fragile sense of self-worth. Marcus Aurelius once warned, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." From this we learn that the response to betrayal must not be retaliation, but strength and dignity grounded in Stoic principles. An iron mind refuses to be shaken by the insecurities of others. It recognizes that envy is not about you, it's about them. In modern life, this hidden dynamic plays out in workplaces, friendships, and even families. You may find that your success becomes a mirror to someone else's self-doubt. The Stoics teach us to cultivate our own excellence, or arete, regardless of who resents it. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." This applies here too, not just in material possessions, but in self-worth. When others feel they lack what you have, they may mask their longing in hostility. But to live stoically is to accept this as part of the human condition. To expect betrayal, not with paranoia, but with preparation and equanimity. William B. Irvine reminds us that we must rehearse adversity in our minds, not to grow bitter, but to remain unshaken when it arrives. Therefore, when jealousy arises from others, do not internalize it. Strengthen your inner citadel. Remember that betrayal caused by insecurity is not a judgment on your character, but a reflection of theirs. Like Epictetus taught, it is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Jealousy is an emotion, but betrayal is a choice. Those who choose to betray have already lost themselves, and yet the Stoic does not curse them. He simply continues his path with resolve, knowing that his peace does not depend on the applause or approval of others. So, if you feel the sting of being betrayed by someone who once cheered you on, do not recoil, reflect. Reaffirm your commitment to your values. Focus on what is within your control, your actions, your reactions, your soul. Practice the art of living well, not by silencing your light, but by letting it shine through the storms others send your way. For as the iron mind teaches us, your inner fortress must be forged in fire, not fear. And above all, walk forward, unbent, unbroken, and unbitter. Number 4. The power struggle. Let's talk about something that hits harder than we expect. Betrayal, not rooted in misunderstanding or suppressed emotion, but in power. You see, some betrayals come from people who aren't looking for love, loyalty, or even connection. They're looking for control. And the moment you begin to rise, to speak more confidently, to walk into your own power, that's when the tension begins. Maybe it's subtle at first, a dismissive comment, an interrupted idea, a backhanded compliment, but over time you start to feel it, their unease with your growth. Carl Jung once said, "Where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, their love is lacking." That contrast explains so much, doesn't it? When someone is addicted to power, your self-respect becomes a threat. Your voice becomes competition. Your light, instead of being welcomed, becomes something they try to dim. So let me ask you, have you ever felt punished just for being proud of who you're becoming? This is where Stoic insight can give us real clarity. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." In other words, when someone undermines you out of fear that you'll surpass them, your task is not to fight back with the same pettiness, but to rise anyway. That's the Stoic secret here. Don't wrestle for control. Stand so firm in your principles that no one can pull you off center. Power struggles are often quiet wars, played out in relationships, at work, even within families. But if you pay attention, you'll notice the patterns. Those who can't celebrate you, who seem to shrink when you expand, are often battling their own fear of inadequacy. The betrayal you feel may not even be personal. It may be their panic leaking out. But you have to decide, will you shrink to soothe their ego, or will you rise and learn to navigate the discomfort that comes with your own growth? Here's what I want you to take away from this. Your growth may cost you comfort, but it should never cost you your dignity. When people betray you in a power struggle, they reveal more about their own inner chaos than they do about your worth. So ask yourself, what does it mean to stay true to your path, even when others try to block it? Can you honor your power without needing to dominate, defend, or destroy? That's where modern Stoicism leads us, to the quiet confidence of being unshakable, not because we control others, but because we've learned to master ourselves. And that, my friend, is a Stoic secret you'll carry with you long after the battle ends. Number 5. Shadow projection. This concept, drawn from Carl Jung's deep psychological insight, explains a subtle yet powerful force behind betrayal. When someone points fingers at you, accusing you of deceit, manipulation, or betrayal itself, pause and ask yourself, is this really about you? Often it's not. What you're seeing is a mirror, not a window. They are projecting their own hidden flaws, the parts of themselves they don't want to see, onto you. And instead of confronting that inner shadow, they cast it outward, blaming you, sometimes betraying you, just to protect their fragile sense of self. Think about the colleague who constantly accuses others of stealing ideas, yet somehow always ends up in the spotlight with work that isn't entirely theirs. Or the friend who gossips behind your back and then accuses you of being untrustworthy. Have you ever been caught in a situation like that, where you're stunned by an accusation that feels completely false? That's not random. It's psychological self-defense on their part. This is where modern Stoicism and the Stoic lessons of thinkers like Marcus Aurelius become powerful tools. If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, he said, I will gladly change. It is the truth I'm after. The Stoic doesn't retaliate. They observe, they question, and they remain calm in the storm of projection. Because when someone betrays you through shadow projection, the battle isn't with you, it's with themselves. A great story that captures this happened to a woman I once coached. Let's call her Lynn. She worked in a non-profit and built genuine connections with the team. But one co-worker, increasingly cold and dismissive, began spreading rumors that Lynn was manipulative. At first, Lynn was crushed, but after reflection, she realized this woman was acting out of her own fears, perhaps envy or past trauma, with trust. Lynn didn't confront her in anger. Instead, she stayed steady, clarified the truth when needed, and let time reveal her integrity. The woman eventually left, but not before others saw through the pattern and apologized to Lynn for doubting her. Now, let me ask you, how would you react if someone threw their shadow onto you? Would you absorb it, or would you, like Lynn, rise above it? This is the essence of having an iron mind, of practicing Stoic lessons not only in theory, but in the very heart of conflict. So the lesson here is this: not every betrayal is personal. Sometimes it's deeply psychological, and your role isn't to change how others see themselves. It's to protect your peace. Stay rooted in your truth. Ask questions. Observe without absorbing. And above all, don't let someone else's darkness dim your light. Let it sharpen your clarity, your boundaries, and your resilience. Because in a world of projections, your strongest armor is self-awarenessness. Number 6. Narcissistic betrayal. Narcissistic betrayal is not just another broken trust, it's a masterclass in confusion. It begins with charm so convincing that it feels like destiny, but ends with an emotional void so cold it leaves you questioning your very reality. Narcissists are skilled performers. At first, they reflect back everything you want to see: validation, attention, admiration. But here's the painful truth. To a narcissist, relationships aren't sacred. They are strategic. You are not loved for who you are, but for how well you fit into their narrative, how you serve their image, boost their ego, or add value to their self-centered ambitions. The moment you become inconvenient, too honest, too strong, too human, they retreat, not with chaos but with calculation. No explanation, no closure, just distance and silence. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, and that is the very task narcissists avoid." Instead of confronting their inner void, they project it outward, using others as emotional scaffolding until the structure no longer serves them, and then they vanish. This isn't imagination. As Seneca observed, we suffer more from imagination than reality. But in this case, the suffering is grounded in the slow, agonizing recognition that the connection you believed was real was in fact conditional. You weren't seen, you were used. And yet, as hard as that truth is, it brings with it a gift, the opportunity to return to yourself. Because the betrayal of a narcissist says nothing about your worth, but everything about their inability to connect with depth, with empathy, with humanity. This is where Stoic principles serve as both compass and shield. Marcus Aurelius writes, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look. That strength is your clarity. That strength is your return to self-respect after someone tried to erode it." The Stoic secret here is not to become hardened, but to become wiser. Don't let their betrayal turn you into someone closed off. Let it sharpen your discernment. Be kind, but to those who are kind in return. Be generous, but not with your peace. Ask yourself honestly, is this person drawn to my soul or just my usefulness? This simple question can save you years of pain. In today's image-driven world, where performance often replaces presence and appearances are more curated than truth, narcissistic personalities thrive. They blend into our lives like friends, lovers, colleagues, but beneath the surface, is a hunger that no amount of love can fill. That's why your role isn't to change them, it's to see them, to identify the pattern before it costs you more of your emotional currency. And when the moment of betrayal comes, let it be a release, not a rupture. Let it mark the beginning of your return to wholeness, not a descent into self-doubt. You deserve relationships rooted in shared virtue, not shifting power dynamics. You deserve to be valued for your presence, not your performance. And when you hold to that truth with clarity and conviction, you are living out the Stoic secret with an iron mind. So I leave you with this. What if betrayal wasn't the end, but the turning point, where you finally stop seeking to be chosen and start choosing yourself? Let the mask fall, let the illusion break, and let your soul rise, undeterred, undiminished, and utterly free. If you've made it this far in the video, I invite you to leave a comment below with the phrase, "Awakening to the Ego." Not only is this a sign that you're really listening, but it's also a sign that you're moving deeper into understanding toxic relationships and applying Stoic principles to your life. Number 7. Trust your intuition. Among the most overlooked forms of intelligence, especially when facing betrayal, is that quiet, persistent whisper from within, your intuition. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand proof, it simply knows. And yet, in a world that glorifies logic and evidence, we often silence this inner guide, brushing it off as paranoia or moodiness. But Carl Jung taught us that the unconscious speaks in symbols, patterns, and feelings, and your intuition is its voice. A culmination of countless experiences, observations, and emotional cues that your conscious mind may not yet have processed. Perhaps you've felt it before, a strange stillness in a conversation where laughter once lived, a glance that holds a flicker of judgment instead of warmth, or a sudden need to explain yourself around someone who used to make you feel understood. These aren't just feelings. They're the first indicators of a shift beneath the surface, subtle clues that a connection may be eroding. And often, these are the tremors before the quake of betrayal. Marcus Aurelius, in his timeless meditations, offered us a vital Stoic principle when he said, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I shall gladly change." But how often do we extend that same openness toward ourselves, toward that inner voice that warns us before words ever do? The Stoic does not fear discomfort, he welcomes it as a teacher. To trust your intuition is not to fall for every fleeting thought, but to discern which signals carry weight, and discernment is a muscle built over time, through self-honesty, silence, and the courage to confront what feels off before it becomes undeniable. There is great strength in subtlety. As the Stoics knew, an iron mind is not rigid, it's responsive, alert, and rooted in reality. It notices without panic and acts without delay. In modern Stoicism, this awareness becomes a daily practice, noticing the energies that enter a room with someone, sensing when trust begins to thin, and not waiting for betrayal to become dramatic before you honor the signs. Let me share a real story that illustrates this perfectly. A man named Thin, in his late 60s, ran a family business with his younger brother. Over time, Thin noticed the bookkeeping conversations were becoming vague. His brother often avoided eye contact during financial discussions, and he began dismissing small concerns with humor. Thin's gut told him something was wrong, but love and loyalty blinded him to the truth, until a major financial inconsistency forced a painful reckoning. Looking back, he saw the signs were there all along. His intuition had spoken, he just hadn't listened. That experience changed how he moved through every relationship afterward, with awareness, not suspicion, and with deep trust in his own internal compass. So I ask you, when was the last time you felt a quiet warning rise inside you? Did you listen? Or did you doubt yourself out of politeness, fear, or denial? Modern life demands that we reconnect with ourselves, especially in an age of curated masks and filtered words. Your intuition is not mystical, it's practical, stoic, and deeply human. It is the result of your lived experience whispering, "Pay attention." The Stoic doesn't wait for betrayal to teach a lesson the hard way. They sharpen their senses, cultivate clarity, and prepare the mind. So the lesson here is simple but profound. Strengthen that voice. Reflect on what it tells you. Write it down. Sit with it. Because trusting your intuition is not just about avoiding betrayal. It's about living with integrity, awareness, and the quiet strength of a soul that refuses to be caught unaware. That's not paranoia. That's philosophy in motion. And in that practice you are building not just resilience, but a fortress of perception, a true iron mind forged in self-trust. Number 8. Recognizing patterns in behavior. Betrayal almost never appears out of thin air. It arrives with a trail, a rhythm, a pattern. But so often we ignore the early signs because we don't want to believe someone close to us could become a source of harm. Carl Jung taught that the unconscious reveals itself through repeated behavior, and this is exactly where the warning signs of betrayal lie. Look closely at how people show up in your life. Do they disappear when you're struggling, yet reappear when they need something? Do they change the subject when you speak of your successes? These aren't random behaviors. They're signs of resentment, envy, or transactional thinking. The Stoics remind us to be vigilant without becoming cynical. As Epictetus wisely said, "Be careful whom you associate with. It's better to be alone than in bad company." This isn't about paranoia, it's about clarity. In modern life, this plays out in every space: work, family, friendships, the colleague who never gives credit, the sibling who subtly competes, the friend who ghosts you after you set boundaries. Betrayal grows in the shadows of patterns we fail to notice. And when we practice modern Stoicism, we train our minds not only to endure, but to see, perceive without illusion. A Stoic principle here is simple but profound. Protect your peace by observing without judgment, and trust what patterns reveal. Let me share a story. David, a client in his late 50s, once told me about a business partner who always disappeared during critical moments but returned when money was on the table. David brushed it off for years, until the partner embezzled funds. Looking back, he saw the pattern had been there all along. That realization didn't just help him recover, it helped him rebuild his next venture with stronger boundaries and a sharper eye. So I ask you, who in your life consistently pulls away when you need them, yet steps close when they benefit? What behaviors have you tolerated in silence, thinking they were harmless? This is where the iron mind is forged, not just in enduring betrayal, but in anticipating it without becoming hardened or bitter. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing. It stands ready for what it is not yet seen." The lesson is clear. Don't just listen to words. Watch behavior. Patterns are the footprints of character. And while you cannot always prevent betrayal, you can prepare yourself through awareness, setting firm boundaries, and living by Stoic principles. Observe without drama, act without delay, and choose clarity over comfort. That's how a Stoic navigates relationships, with eyes open, heart steady, and an unshakable iron mind. And that's the real power of modern Stoicism. It doesn't shield you from betrayal, but it gives you the tools to rise with strength, clarity, and purpose. These Stoic secrets aren't just philosophy, they're practical armor for your everyday life. If today's video on how to protect yourself against betrayal brought you value, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Stoic Secrets. And make sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on future insights to sharpen your mind and strengthen your spirit. Until next time, stay grounded and stay resilient. How to protect yourself against betrayal. In life, betrayal often comes not as a surprise, but as a realization we ignored the signs. Whether from a friend, a partner, or a colleague, betrayal shakes the foundation of trust and leaves a scar on the soul. But through the lens of modern Stoicism and timeless Stoic principles, we don't have to be victims of this pain. We can become wiser because of it. The Stoics believe that while we cannot control others' actions, we can absolutely control our reactions, our boundaries, and our clarity. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. So, how do we protect ourselves while still living with open hearts? Here are 8 Stoic-aligned principles that serve as your armor against betrayal. Number 1. Set clear boundaries. Setting clear boundaries isn't about being distant or harsh. It's about protecting your well-being with self-respect and clarity. In today's world, where people often overstep without even realizing it, boundaries act as a necessary framework for healthy relationships. Carl Jung once said that much of what we project onto others is rooted in our own unresolved conflicts. That's why your personal space, emotionally, mentally, and physically, needs to be defined, not defended. Boundaries aren't about pushing people away. They're about creating conditions for real respect to grow. When you draw a line, you're not being difficult, you're teaching others how to treat you. And when someone consistently tests or ignores those lines, they're revealing their character, not misunderstanding your intent. This is where ancient Stoic wisdom still speaks loud and clear. Seneca once wrote, "No person has the power to have everything they want, but it is in their power not to want what they don't have." In modern relationships, that means we don't have to accept everyone and everything into our lives. Not everyone deserves access to your time, energy, or trust. Boundaries are how you decide who does. Think of boundaries not as walls, but as filters. A wall keeps everyone out, but a filter lets the right people in and keeps the harmful ones at bay. And here's the truth. People who truly care about you will honor your boundaries without needing to be reminded. Those who don't are often trying to push past them to maintain control or serve their own needs. That's why developing what we call an iron mind is so crucial. With an iron mind, you remain firm without being cruel, steady without being stubborn. You uphold your values with calm confidence. As Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If you keep compromising your values for the comfort of others, your inner world becomes chaotic. But when you commit to Stoic principles, clarity, virtue, self-possession, you create peace within, no matter the chaos around you. So let me ask you, where in your life do you need to draw a clearer boundary? Who continues to cross it? And most importantly, are you willing to protect your peace, even if it means disappointing someone else? Boundaries are not selfish. They're a reflection of your growth, your healing, and your commitment to living with intention. And that, right there, is a Stoic secret worth living by. Number 2, observe actions, not words. In a world filled with polished words and curated appearances, one truth remains constant. Actions speak louder than words. You've likely experienced this before. Someone says all the right things, makes you feel seen and valued, but when you truly need them, they vanish. This disconnect between what people say and what they do is at the heart of many betrayals. Carl Jung emphasized that the unconscious reveals itself through behavior, not language. Words can be rehearsed. Actions, especially over time, show you who someone truly is. If you want to protect yourself from the pain of misplaced trust, start paying attention to how someone acts when they don't stand to benefit from you. Do they show up when there's nothing in it for them? Do they honor small promises even when no one's watching? A real friend, a real partner, proves their loyalty not with grand declarations, but with consistent, reliable action. It reminds me of a story a listener once shared. She had a friend who talked a big game, offering help, cheering her on, promising support. But when things got tough, that friend was nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, someone else, quiet, steady, was the one who actually showed up. That's when she realized loyalty isn't flashy, it's consistent. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." The same principle applies to relationships. If someone's actions don't align with their words, believe the actions. In the age of texts, social media, and surface-level connections, it's easy to be seduced by talk. But talk is cheap. Character is built and revealed through behavior. So here's a question to reflect on. Who in your life has proven themselves through quiet consistency, and who keeps showing you through inaction that their promises are empty? These are important questions, not to judge others, but to clarify who deserves space in your life. This is one of the most powerful Stoic lessons. Don't be misled by appearances. Practice discernment. Cultivate an iron mind that sees clearly and acts wisely. In the end, it's not what people say, it's what they do that builds trust, reveals character, and helps you protect your peace. That's a modern Stoicism truth worth living by. "I choose to look at actions, not words," is more than an affirmation. It's a shift in awareness. When you commit to judging people by their actions rather than their promises, you're living out the Stoic philosophy, where truth is measured by actions, not words. Number 3. Surround yourself with true supporters. One of the deepest roots of betrayal lies in misplaced trust, when we keep people close who don't actually want the best for us. Carl Jung believed that unresolved aspects of the self often find expression in relationships, and sometimes the people who appear closest to us are wrestling with their own hidden envy or inadequacy. This is why surrounding yourself with true supporters, people who celebrate your wins and stand by you during your struggles, is not just comforting, it's essential. A true supporter doesn't compete, doesn't diminish, and doesn't disappear when you rise. Instead, they're the ones who quietly applaud your growth and walk beside you, not ahead or behind. In a world where social masks are common and loyalty is often tested, this kind of genuine presence is rare, but invaluable. As Seneca wrote, one of the most beautiful qualities of true friendship is to understand and to be understood. Modern Stoicism encourages us to be discerning in our connections, to observe how people act, not just what they say, and to align our lives with those who uplift our values, not undermine them. Think for a moment about your circle. Are you surrounded by people who challenge you with kindness or who criticize you with hidden motives? Do they speak about your dreams with belief or with doubt disguised as concern? An iron mind is not just strong, it is selective. It recognizes that the people you allow closest to your heart will either fuel your purpose or fracture your peace. There's a well-known saying, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." From a Stoic perspective, this is more than motivational. It's a principle of emotional ecology. Just as a healthy body depends on clean air and good food, a healthy mind depends on the integrity of those around it. In practical terms, this means making hard choices. Sometimes, growth requires stepping away from long-time friends who no longer align with your path. Sometimes it means being alone for a season, rather than surrounded by people who cheer for you in public but doubt you in private. Epictetus reminds us, the key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best. And this isn't about perfection, it's about consistency, character, and alignment. In modern life, this principle couldn't be more relevant. With online connections, performative support, and superficial affirmations, it's easy to mistake proximity for loyalty. But the Stoic lesson here is clear. Choose substance over surface. Let actions speak louder than compliments. True supporters won't need reminders of your worth. They'll reflect it in how they treat you. So take a closer look at your tribe. Who shows up not just when you're struggling, but also when you're thriving? Who encourages your discipline, your clarity, your Stoic principles? Who strengthens your resolve when the world challenges your values? These are your people. And in protecting yourself against betrayal, identifying and honoring them is one of the wisest, most Stoic acts you can do, because ultimately the strength of your iron mind is magnified by the quality of those who stand beside it. Number 4, don't take betrayal personally. One of the greatest emotional traps we fall into is believing that someone's betrayal defines our value, but the truth is, it defines theirs. Carl Jung's deep psychological insight reminds us that people often act from their unconscious fears and wounds, projecting their unresolved issues onto others in the form of betrayal, deceit, or withdrawal. When someone betrays you, be it a friend turning cold, a partner lying, or a colleague undermining you, it's tempting to spiral into self-blame, but betrayal, more often than not, is rooted in the betrayer's insecurities, not in your inadequacy. As painful as it is not personal, it's psychological. This understanding is central to modern Stoicism, which teaches that while we cannot control what others do, we can control our interpretation of it. Epictetus said it best, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." So, the sting of betrayal doesn't come from the act itself, but from the meaning we attach to it. In real life, many of us have experienced this, being ghosted by someone we trusted, watching a longtime friend grow distant as our lives improve, or feeling excluded from circles we once called home. These moments feel deeply personal, but if we pause and observe from a Stoic principles lens, we begin to see the bigger picture. Often, the betrayer is battling their own internal chaos, jealousy, inadequacy, fear of being left behind, and their actions are attempts to manage those feelings, not targeted attacks against you. That's why the iron mind is so powerful here. It doesn't numb you, it clarifies you. It helps you see betrayal not as a mirror of your worth, but as a window into someone else's struggle. This mental clarity protects your peace, keeps you from drowning in self-doubt, and redirects your focus toward what truly matters, your values, your growth, and your resilience. Let's connect this to the modern world, where betrayal is no longer just face-to-face, but often digital. Friends unfollowing, colleagues copying your work, or partners emotionally checking out without a word. In this noise, the Stoic remains still. Marcus Aurelius wrote, The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. That means we don't retaliate, and we certainly don't shrink. We rise with dignity. We respond with reflection, not reaction, and instead of stewing in bitterness, we use the betrayal as fuel for greater discernment and deeper self-awareness. So, when you're faced with betrayal, ask not what's wrong with me, but rather, what does this reveal about them? And more importantly, what can I learn from this to protect my peace and preserve my values moving forward? Because in the end, the one who betrays has only told you a truth you needed to know, and that's a gift cloaked in pain. The Stoic doesn't deny the hurt, he understands it, honors it, and then lets it go. Your worth is not up for negotiation because of someone else's weakness. So hold your ground, strengthen your iron mind, and remember, betrayal may bruise the heart, but it cannot touch the soul that is fortified by truth, character, and the calm power of Stoic wisdom. Number 5. Trust your gut instincts. In a world that constantly tells you to wait for proof or don't be so sensitive, one of the most powerful acts of self-trust is listening to your gut. That quiet nudge, the subtle discomfort, the whisper that says, something's off. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Carl Jung once said that what we don't bring into consciousness shows up in our lives as fate, and often that fate starts with ignoring our instinct. Your intuition isn't a magical hunch. It's your subconscious mind working overtime, processing patterns, behaviors, and emotions long before your logical brain can catch up. Have you ever had a moment where everything on the surface seemed fine, but you felt a strange unease deep inside, like a warning your body understood before your thoughts did? Maybe it was a friend who started avoiding eye contact, a partner whose tone shifted ever so slightly, or a colleague whose compliments felt more like veiled critiques. And yet, instead of honoring that inner signal, you pushed it down, dismissed it, told yourself you were being paranoid. But here's the truth. The body keeps score, and your nervous system is often miles ahead of your mind. Let me take you deeper with a story from someone I worked with, a kind, talented woman named Lean, who ran a successful wellness business with a longtime friend. At first, it was a dream partnership, but over time she noticed subtle changes. Her partner began withholding financial reports, skipping meetings, and brushing off questions with vague reassurances. She felt a tension growing, but every time she brought it up, he'd charm his way through it. Still, her gut told her something wasn't right. She stayed quiet, trying to be reasonable, professional, forgiving. Months later, she uncovered that he had been siphoning profits into a private account. Her instinct had been dead on, but her silence had cost her dearly. That betrayal didn't just hurt financially, it shook her confidence in her own judgment, and that, perhaps, is the deepest cut of all. Because when you ignore your intuition, you're not just risking betrayal from others, you're betraying yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That power begins by recognizing the signals your own mind and body are sending you. Modern Stoicism doesn't teach us to be suspicious of every smile or cynical about every gesture. It teaches us to develop an iron mind, one that is grounded in self-awareness and immune to the distractions of superficial charm or empty words. Listening to your intuition is part of that practice. It's not about fear, it's about clarity. It's not about judgment, it's about discernment. So, I ask you, how many times have you paid the price for ignoring your inner voice? And how might your life change if, starting today, you promised yourself to never second-guess it again? This isn't about being perfect, it's about being present. Because the more you honor your gut, the sharper it becomes. It's like a compass, subtle, silent, but always pointing you toward what's real. That is the Stoic secret. To live not by appearances, but by inner alignment. To trust not the noise, but the signal. And to walk through life not afraid of betrayal, but fortified by your ability to sense it long before it strikes. That's not just intuition, that's self-mastery. Number 6. Be mindful of power dynamics. Let's be honest. Betrayal rarely starts with an obvious act of disloyalty. It often begins subtly through shifts in power, influence, and control. And that's why being mindful of power dynamics is one of the most overlooked yet powerful ways to protect yourself from being betrayed. Whether you're dealing with a boss who constantly moves the goalpost, a friend who guilt-trips you into decisions, or a partner who slowly chips away at your independence, the warning signs are always there. But are you paying attention? Power isn't always about who yells louder or earns more. Sometimes it's hidden in manipulation, passive aggression, or the pressure to constantly prove yourself. And when power is uneven in a relationship, betrayal is often just a few steps away. That's why Marcus Aurelius, a man who held immense power yet practiced deep humility, reminds us in Meditations, the nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength. The calm mind sees clearly. It senses when influence becomes control, when guidance becomes coercion, and when loyalty becomes submission. So I want you to ask yourself, in your closest relationships, who really holds the power, and how does that make you feel? In my own experience, and perhaps in yours too, the deepest betrayals didn't come from enemies, but from those I once trusted, whose influence I allowed to go unchecked. They didn't need to raise their voices, they only needed to raise doubts about my worth, my choices, my direction. And because I didn't see it as power at the time, I let it slide, until the cost became too high. This is where Stoic secrets come in. A Stoic, grounded in inner strength, knows that setting boundaries isn't a sign of rebellion. It's a sign of self-respect. And if someone is offended by your boundaries, they were never invested in your freedom to begin with. Power struggles don't need shouting matches to be destructive. They only need silence. And your silence is often the first thing a manipulator counts on. But here's the truth. Your peace is not up for negotiation. Your values, your clarity, your right to decide, those are yours alone. And if someone feels threatened by that, it's not your burden to carry. So how do you reclaim balance? You do it by remembering who you are and what you stand for. You do it by practicing what the Stoics called prohairesis, the ability to choose your own response regardless of external pressure. So the next time someone tries to steer your choices under the guise of love, loyalty, or leadership, pause and reflect. Is this guidance or is this control? Am I being empowered or slowly disempowered? That moment of awareness might just be the shield that protects you from future betrayal. And in honoring that awareness, you're not only protecting your energy, you're honoring your growth, your boundaries, and your Stoic path. Because, as every true Stoic knows, power over others means nothing if you've lost power over yourself. When you begin to recognize the subtle signs of manipulation and decide to take back control of your life, share your awakening with our community. Comment, I choose to stay in control, to affirm that you are on the path to building a strong mind and living by the Stoic principles. Number 7. Cut off toxic people. Let's talk about something that's difficult for many of us, especially those who value loyalty and second chances. Knowing when to walk away. When someone has betrayed you once, there's a high chance they'll do it again. Not because people can't change, but because most won't unless they're truly willing. And that kind of change takes more than an apology. Carl Jung believed that people operate unconsciously most of the time, repeating patterns unless they make the effort to bring their darkness into the light. And here's the truth. You are not responsible for dragging someone else's shadow into awareness at the cost of your peace. One of the most powerful Stoic secrets is knowing that mercy without boundaries becomes self-betrayal. If someone continues to disrespect, manipulate, or betray your trust, the most loving thing you can do for them and for yourself is to step back. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Sometimes the obstacle is a person, and cutting ties isn't failure, it's growth. Now, I know this hits close to home for some of you. You might be thinking of someone right now, a friend who drains your energy, a partner who gaslights you, or a family member who keeps crossing lines you've drawn too many times. Maybe you've told yourself, they're going through something, or they didn't mean to hurt me. But here's the question, how many chances have you given? And at what cost? Your emotional and mental well-being isn't infinite. Every time you allow toxicity to linger, you're giving away energy that could be spent on healing, growth, or people who truly respect you. And yes, walking away is painful. It can feel like giving up. But sometimes letting go isn't weakness. It's a declaration that your peace matters. One of the core Stoic principles is distinguishing what is within your control and changing someone else's character is not. But protecting your space, your energy, and your integrity, that's entirely yours. Think about it. How would your life look if you cleared out just one toxic relationship? How much more grounded would you feel? What might you create or become if you weren't constantly recovering from emotional wounds someone else keeps inflicting? The Stoics didn't shy away from hard truths, and neither should we. Seneca once said, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you." That means we choose our circle with care. Not from guilt, not from history, but from alignment. And when someone shows you who they are through repeated betrayal, believe them. Not because you're judging them, but because you're finally choosing yourself. So I'll leave you with this. Who in your life still holds space that they haven't earned? And more importantly, what would it feel like to take that space back? The answer might just lead you to a quieter mind, a stronger soul, and the freedom to walk fully in your own power. Number 8. Embrace the lesson. Betrayal is one of life's most personal injuries. It doesn't just hurt, it shakes your foundation. Whether it comes from a friend, a partner, a colleague, or even family, betrayal triggers a flood of emotions: anger, sadness, confusion, even shame. But the truth is, betrayal, while painful, is also an extraordinary teacher. If you let it, it can become a turning point. Carl Jung believed that every experience, especially the painful ones, pushes us toward deeper self-awarenessness. In his view, the outer world reflects our inner reality, and betrayal often reveals parts of ourselves that we've ignored, like unspoken expectations, overlooked red flags, or patterns we repeat without realizing. And that awareness? It's the first step toward real growth. Too often we fall into the trap of bitterness. We replay the betrayal over and over in our minds, assigning blame, holding on to resentment, and building emotional walls. But here's what Stoic philosophy reminds us. Pain isn't what ruins us, our interpretation of pain is. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." That means no matter how someone hurt you, you have the ability to shape your response. You can either stay stuck in the story or step into the lesson. And the lesson might be difficult. It might be that you ignored your instincts, trusted too quickly, or prioritized someone else's comfort over your own boundaries. But owning those truths doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. There's a story of a man in his 60s who was betrayed by a lifelong friend during a business deal. He had built years of trust, only to have it shattered in an instant. At first, he was consumed by rage, but eventually he took a different route. He started journaling every emotion, studying Stoic texts daily, and seeking counsel, not to numb the pain, but to understand it. He came to see that the betrayal taught him more about human nature, boundaries, and self-respect than any book or mentor ever had. It changed how he viewed relationships and made him stronger, not just emotionally but spiritually. That is what we mean by having an iron mind, one that bends with pain but does not break, one that transforms suffering into clarity. In the lens of modern Stoicism, we are not victims of betrayal, we are students of it. Every betrayal is an invitation to elevate your standards, sharpen your awareness, and redefine what you expect from others and yourself. So ask yourself, what have I learned about people? What have I learned about myself? And how can I grow wiser without becoming colder? Those are the real questions that move you forward. You don't have to forget what happened. You don't even have to forgive right away. But you do have to face it and frame it as part of your growth. So don't carry betrayal like a wound. Carry it like a lesson. Let it shape you, but not shrink you. Let it teach you boundaries, clarity, and resilience. And most importantly, let it guide you back to your true self, calmer, wiser, and stronger than before. That, my friend, is one of the most powerful Stoic secrets you'll ever live by. The pain will pass. What matters is what you do with the lesson. Will you let it make you bitter, or will it make you wiser? Trust slowly, observe deeply, and never be afraid to walk away from those who don't value your loyalty, because at the end of the day, the right person will never betray you. If this resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because someone out there needs to hear this today. 7 reasons to stop explaining yourself to toxic people. Modern Stoicism. The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have. Epictetus. Ever felt the need to explain yourself to people who never listen? They question, challenge, and demand justifications, not to understand, but to control. These people don't seek truth. They twist your words, drain your energy, and make you feel guilty for being yourself. The more you explain, the more power you give away. But here's the truth. You owe toxic people nothing. Real strength lies in silence and self-mastery. So how do you break free? Stay until the end, because the last reason will change everything. Let's begin. Number 1, they don't want to understand you. There comes a point in life when we realize that explaining ourselves to certain people is a futile effort, an endless cycle of justification that drains our energy and serves no real purpose. Some individuals have already made up their minds about us, not based on who we truly are, but on who they need us to be in their own narrative. Whether they see us as the villain, the scapegoat, or a mere tool for their own validation, their perception is fixed. not because they lack the intelligence to understand, but because they lack the willingness. In their world, truth is secondary to their preconceived notions, and no amount of reasoning or explanation will ever change that. This is why Marcus Aurelius wisely said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." The true mark of wisdom is recognizing that some battles are not worth fighting, and trying to convince someone who has already decided against you is one of them. Instead of wasting breath trying to reshape their perception, channel that energy into living with integrity. Let your actions define you, not your words. Imagine standing in front of a brick wall, desperately trying to reason with it. You bring logic, facts, and even heartfelt emotion, but the wall remains unmoved. That's what it's like dealing with people who refuse to see beyond their biases. They are not listening because they are not interested in the truth. They are only interested in preserving their perspective. This is why Stoic principles teach us to focus only on what is within our control. The moment we engage in futile explanations, we give away our peace, investing time and effort into people who are committed to misunderstanding us. But what if, instead of trying to convince them, we simply stopped? What if we embraced the freedom that comes with not needing to be understood by everyone? I once dealt with someone who consistently misjudged me, twisting my words and assuming the worst, no matter what I said. At first, I exhausted myself trying to clarify my intentions, hoping they would eventually see the truth. But it never worked. So I did something radical. I stopped explaining. I let my actions speak louder than my words. At first, nothing changed. They continued their assumptions, but over time my unwavering consistency made it impossible for others to ignore the reality of who I was. Some people adjusted their view, while others remained stuck in their misconceptions. Either way, I was no longer burdened by the need to justify myself. This is the power of self-assurance, the ability to stand firm in who you are without seeking validation from those who will never give it. So how do we handle people like this? First, we stop explaining. If someone refuses to understand us, that is their problem, not ours. Second, we focus on action, not words. Live in a way that makes explanations unnecessary. Third, we accept that people will believe whatever they want, and that has nothing to do with our worth. In a world where opinions are often louder than truth, it is easy to get caught up in trying to prove ourselves, but true freedom comes from letting go. Seneca said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." The resistance we face from others is simply an opportunity to strengthen our character. Instead of seeking approval, seek alignment with your values. Instead of fighting to be understood, be at peace with being misjudged. In the end, some people don't want to understand you. They just want to argue. The best response: don't engage. Walk away. Live your truth, and let your actions be louder than any explanation ever could. Number 2, they use your words against you. Let's talk about something we've all faced. Those moments when we try to explain ourselves only to watch our words get twisted into something we never meant. You start with good intentions, thinking you're clearing up a misunderstanding or defending yourself against false accusations. But the more you explain, the more they dissect, distort, and weaponize your words. You see, some people don't seek clarity, they seek control. They don't listen to understand, they listen to find something they can use against you later. It could be a single phrase taken out of context, an exaggeration of your meaning, or a complete misrepresentation of what you said. And the more you keep talking, the more ammunition you unknowingly hand them. Think of it like fueling a fire. Every word you speak is another log thrown into the flames. At first, it seems harmless, just a flicker of heat. But as you keep explaining, defending, and justifying, the fire grows, feeding off your own words until it becomes uncontrollable. Suddenly, you find yourself engulfed, trapped by the very conversation you thought would set things straight. This is why Stoic principles teach us the power of restraint. Seneca said, "Silence is a lesson learned through life's many sufferings." The more we speak to those who twist our words, the more we suffer. Silence, on the other hand, is a shield, one that starves manipulators of the fuel they need to distort our truth. I once knew someone who had a habit of twisting my words. No matter how careful I was, they'd pluck certain phrases, spin them, and spread a false version of my reality. At first, I believed I could out-explain their manipulation, that if I just clarified myself enough, the truth would win. But the harder I tried, the worse it got. They weren't interested in the truth, they were interested in control. So, I did the only thing left to do. I stopped. I chose silence. No more defending, no more justifying, no more explanations for someone who had no intention of hearing them. And do you know what happened? They lost their power. Without my words to twist, they had nothing left. The moment I stopped engaging, their manipulations collapsed under the weight of their own dishonesty. So how do you handle people like this? First, recognize the trap. If someone has a history of twisting your words, don't give them more to work with. Second, embrace silence. Not every accusation deserves a defense, and not every question deserves an answer. Third, protect your energy. Save your words for those who genuinely seek understanding, not those who search for ways to discredit you. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, "You always own the option of having no opinion." In other words, you don't have to respond to every attack or explain yourself to every skeptic. At the end of the day, your words should be used to build, not to defend against manipulators. And the best way to win against those who twist your truth? Say less, do more, and let your silence speak louder than their distortions ever could. So, the next time you feel tempted to over-explain, ask yourself, who are you really explaining for? The truth doesn't need constant defense. It stands on its own, with or without words. Number 3, they drain your energy. Let's talk about something that quietly erodes your peace, wasting your energy trying to justify yourself to people who will never truly listen. You explain, you clarify, you repeat yourself, believing that if you just find the right words, they'll finally understand. But no matter how much effort you put in, nothing changes. And before you know it, you're drained, frustrated, and emotionally exhausted. This is the trap of engaging with toxic people who don't seek understanding, but rather control, validation, or conflict. They don't want an explanation. They want a reaction. Every time you try to reason with them, you're not moving forward. You're sinking deeper into their game, a cycle of endless arguments that lead nowhere. And while you're left mentally exhausted, they walk away unaffected, ready to repeat the same exhausting pattern tomorrow. Think of it like trying to fill a bottomless pit. You pour and pour, hoping that eventually it will be enough. But the pit never fills, and all you're left with is an empty bucket and a sense of loss. This is exactly what happens when you waste your words on people who refuse to see your perspective. The more you engage, the more they take, and the more drained you become. Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic emperor, once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The moment you recognize that you cannot control how others perceive you, but you can control how much energy you give them, you begin to reclaim your power, your peace, your time, your focus. These are things too valuable to waste on endless explanations that fall on deaf ears. I've been there myself. I spent so much time trying to defend my choices to someone who was never truly interested in understanding me. Every conversation felt like a battlefield where I had to prove myself over and over again. But one day, it hit me. They weren't actually listening. They weren't looking for clarity. They were looking for ways to keep me entangled, to make me feel small, to control the narrative. That day, I made a decision. I stopped explaining. I stopped justifying. I let my actions speak for themselves. And you know what happened? Nothing. The moment I withdrew my energy, their power over me vanished. I walked away with my peace intact, and they were left searching for someone else to drain. So how do you handle people like this? First, recognize the drain. If a conversation leaves you feeling exhausted rather than understood, that's a sign. Second, stop engaging. Not everyone deserves an explanation, and you owe none to those who refuse to listen. Third, redirect your energy. The time you spend defending yourself could be used for something far greater: your growth, your goals, your well-being. The Stoics teach us that our energy is best spent on what we can control, and that means choosing where to invest our mental and emotional strength. At the end of the day, your energy is precious. Don't waste it on people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Protect your peace, walk away, and invest in what truly matters. You don't have to play their game. You don't have to keep pouring into a bottomless pit. You can set down the bucket and walk away. The real question is, will you? If you've watched up to this point, you're already taking a powerful step toward protecting your peace and setting boundaries with toxic people. Comment below with Stoic strength to affirm your commitment to living with clarity and purpose. Don't go anywhere. There's still invaluable wisdom ahead that will help you navigate life with resilience and self-mastery. Stay until the end to reclaim your energy and embrace the freedom of not needing to explain yourself. Number 4. Their judgment is theirs, not yours. What others think of you has far more to do with them than it does with you. This is one of the most liberating truths you can embrace, yet it's also one of the hardest to internalize. People will judge, misunderstand, and misinterpret you, but their perceptions are merely reflections of their own fears, insecurities, and past experiences. When someone calls you arrogant, it often reveals their own self-doubt. When they accuse you of dishonesty, it may be because deceit is familiar to them, and when they tell you that your dreams are unrealistic, it's often because they have been conditioned to fear failure. This is the lens through which they see the world, not as it is, but as their own limitations allow them to. It is much like looking through a cracked, dirty window. No matter how beautiful the view, the distortion in the glass alters what they see. But here's where the wisdom of Stoic principles comes into play. Why waste your energy trying to clean a window that isn't yours? Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic thinkers, reminds us in Meditations that we have power over our minds, not external events, and that true peace comes from within. Instead of bending yourself to fit someone else's flawed perception, stand firm in your own reality. There was a time when I tried tirelessly to correct misunderstandings. I believed that if I could just explain myself better, they would finally see me clearly. If I was reserved, I was labeled cold. If I was expressive, I was called too much. The shifting goalposts of their judgment exhausted me until I realized the truth. They didn't want to understand. Their perception of me was not a reflection of who I was, but of who they were. That realization changed everything. I stopped explaining, stopped justifying, and most importantly, stopped letting their opinions weigh on me. And while their opinions remained the same, my inner peace grew immeasurably. This is what Epictetus meant when he said, What other people think of you is none of your concern. You cannot control their thoughts, but you can control how much space you give them in your mind. So how do you handle people who are determined to misunderstand you? First, stop explaining. Their judgment was never about you in the first place. Second, detach emotionally. Just as a passing storm cannot uproot a deeply rooted tree, external opinions should not shake your sense of self. Lastly, stay true to your path. The people who genuinely matter will see you for who you are. No explanations required. This is the essence of modern Stoicism, to walk through life anchored in self-awareness, untouched by the fleeting opinions of others. At the end of the day, the world will always be full of people who project their own struggles onto you. But their judgments do not define you. Your character does. Stay grounded in your truth and let the noise fade into the background where it belongs. Number 5. They pretend to be victims while manipulating you. Let's talk about one of the most frustrating and energy-draining behaviors you'll ever encounter. People who manipulate while pretending to be victims. You know exactly the type. No matter what you say, no matter how much you clarify, they always twist the situation in their favor. They shift the blame, dodge responsibility, and somehow make you the villain in their carefully crafted story of suffering. But here's the hard truth. Some people don't seek resolution. They seek control. They wield their victimhood like a weapon, using guilt, emotional outbursts, and twisted narratives to keep you stuck in their loop of manipulation. The more you explain, the deeper you fall into their trap, because to them it's not about truth, it's about maintaining power over you. And that's the game they play, a game designed so that you can never win. Picture this. You're playing chess, but every time you make a move, they change the rules. Every logical argument you present is met with deflection. Every attempt to reason with them is met with exaggerated hurt. They cry. They twist your words. They make you question yourself until, before you know it, you're apologizing for something you didn't even do. That's when you realize you're not in a conversation, you're in a performance. And your role, the unwitting audience to their self-pity spectacle. The only way to break free, stop playing. This is where Stoicism offers a path to freedom. Epictetus said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." In other words, manipulators only have power if you engage with them. The moment you stop justifying yourself, you take away their ability to control the narrative. Your peace doesn't come from proving your innocence. It comes from detachment. Why waste energy defending yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you? A Stoic understands that you cannot control another person's perception, only your response to it. I remember dealing with someone just like this. Anytime I pointed out their harmful behavior, they'd flip the script. "I can't believe you'd say that about me, after everything I've done for you." Suddenly, the conversation was no longer about their actions, but about their feelings. And I fell for it every time, reassuring them, explaining myself, trying to prove I wasn't the bad guy. Then one day, I saw it for what it was. Instead of debating, I simply said, "I see what you're doing." No argument, no justification, just quiet recognition. And in that moment, they had nothing left to twist. That's when I learned the greatest Stoic lesson in dealing with manipulators. They only win if you keep playing. So, how do you handle people like this? First, stop explaining yourself. You don't owe clarity to someone who thrives on confusion. If they refuse to take responsibility, that's their burden to carry, not yours. Second, set firm boundaries. The moment you recognize the pattern, step back. Don't get caught in their emotional web. And finally, let them play the victim, but without your participation. Let them act out their role for whoever will listen, but not you. because when you refuse to engage, you expose their performance for what it really is. You cannot control how others perceive you, but you can control whether you let their games disrupt your peace. And in the end, that's what manipulators fear most, not being able to drag you into their chaos. So walk away, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with the quiet confidence of someone who knows the truth. Because real accountability exposes fake victimhood, and your greatest power is knowing you don't need to prove yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Number 6. They demand justifications they don't deserve. Let's talk about a trap that many of us fall into, the habit of over-explaining ourselves to people who don't deserve an explanation. You set a boundary, make a personal decision, or choose a new direction in life, and suddenly someone demands to know why. Not out of genuine curiosity or concern, but from a sense of entitlement, as if your choices require their approval. But here's the truth: they don't. Not everyone is entitled to access your reasoning, and the moment you realize this, you step into a new level of freedom. When you stop justifying yourself to the wrong people, you reclaim control over your life. Think of it like this: locking your door at night isn't something you debate with others. You don't keep it open just because someone outside demands entry. You lock it for your safety, your peace, and your well-being. The same principle applies to your personal decisions. Just because someone knocks on the door of your life, questioning your choices, doesn't mean you have to let them in. And yet, toxic people, those who thrive on manipulation, guilt-tripping, and control, will insist otherwise. They'll pressure you, demand explanations, and act as if your decision to prioritize yourself is an offense against them. But their reaction says more about their entitlement than it does about your right to protect your peace. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it simply: if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. That's your answer. If your decision is right for you, you don't need to explain it to anyone. If your boundary is necessary for your well-being, it stands on its own. The need to over-explain often comes from a place of fear of upsetting others, fear of judgment, or fear of losing relationships. But let's be honest, if someone truly respects you, they won't require a detailed justification just to accept your choices. It's only those who wish to control you that make you feel obligated to defend yourself. I remember a time when I started setting firmer boundaries with someone who constantly drained my energy. Whenever I tried to step back, they'd demand to know why. Why are you acting different? Why are you avoiding me? What did I do? At first I felt guilty. I wanted to explain myself to make them understand. But then I realized no explanation would ever be enough. So instead I simply said, "This is what's best for me." No debate, no justification, just a simple, firm statement. And you know what? That was the moment they had nothing left to argue with. When you stop over-explaining, you remove the power toxic people have over you. So, how do you handle people who demand justifications they don't deserve? First, stop over-explaining. If someone can't respect your decision without a detailed reason, they weren't going to respect it with one either. Second, stand firm. Your peace doesn't need permission. You don't owe anyone access to your energy, your time, or your mental well-being. And finally, remember this: true respect comes from those who don't need an explanation to honor your choices. The right people in your life will support you without forcing you to prove yourself. At the end of the day, your life is yours to live, not a courtroom where you have to argue for your own decisions. The strongest boundary is the one you don't feel the need to explain. So move forward with confidence, knowing that the right people won't demand a justification. They'll simply respect your choice. If you're ready to protect your peace and stop over-explaining yourself to toxic people, comment "No justification needed" below. Number 7. They feed on your emotional reactions. Toxic individuals thrive on the energy they extract from your emotional reactions, not because they seek understanding, but because they revel in the chaos they create. They push, provoke, and distort conversations, not in pursuit of truth, but to entangle you in an endless cycle of justification. The more you explain yourself, the deeper you sink into their game, one where logic is irrelevant and only emotional control determines the winner. When dealing with such individuals, your strength lies not in proving your point, but in mastering your response. They don't seek resolution, they seek reaction, and the moment you react, you give them exactly what they want, control over your emotions. It's much like the old saying, never wrestle with a pig. You both get dirty, but the pig enjoys it. When you engage with those who manipulate, you're not elevating the discussion. You're lowering yourself into the mud of their tactics. They win by making you feel defensive, by watching your frustration build, by seeing their words affect you. But here's the key. If they thrive on your emotional energy, then the most effective way to stop them is to refuse to give it. This is where the wisdom of Stoic principles becomes your greatest ally. Stoicism teaches that external forces, whether people, situations, or events, only have as much power over you as you allow them to have. Seneca reminds us, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. The battle they seek is not fought with words, it's fought with restraint. When you choose detachment, when you no longer take the bait, you shift the power dynamic. They cannot manipulate someone who remains unshaken. I once encountered someone who had perfected the art of provocation. They would drop passive-aggressive comments, lace their words with subtle insults, and then wait, eagerly anticipating my reaction. And for a long time, I played right into their hands. I'd explain, defend, even raise my voice, all while they enjoyed every second of it. But everything changed the day I chose silence over engagement. Instead of arguing, I simply said, "Noted," and moved on. The moment they realized I would no longer give them the reaction they craved, their game was over. And that's when I learned a vital lesson. Silence isn't surrender, it's control. When you refuse to engage in their drama, they lose their grip on you. So, how do you deal with people like this? First, recognize the trap. If someone persistently pulls you into emotional conflict, understand that it's intentional. They are not looking for clarity or compromise. They are looking for control. Second, refuse to react. Your calmness is your greatest weapon. When you disengage, when you remain unbothered, their words lose their sting. And finally, protect your peace. Some battles are not worth fighting, and the real victory often lies in walking away unshaken. In other words, their words can only hurt you if you allow them to. The strongest person in the room is never the loudest, never the most reactive, but the one who remains composed in the face of provocation. In modern life, we encounter these individuals in many forms: colleagues who constantly criticize, friends who disguise insults as jokes, or even family members who know exactly how to push our buttons. The digital age has only amplified their presence, with online trolls and toxic social media interactions feeding off emotional responses. But the principle remains the same. Do not feed the fire. Instead, embody the wisdom of the Stoics. Focus on what you can control: your response, your mindset, your peace. You don't owe anyone an explanation, especially not those who manipulate discussion for their own amusement. Walk away, stay centered, and remember, true strength is not in proving a point, but in refusing to be controlled. When you stop explaining yourself to toxic people, you reclaim your peace. Every justification you give feeds their control, but silence starves them of power. As Marcus Aurelius said, you always have the option of having no opinion. True strength comes from standing firm in your decisions without seeking approval. You don't need to explain, defend, or prove yourself. Your actions will speak louder than words. Now, the question is, how do you apply this in daily life? What practical steps can you take to embody this level of emotional control? That's where Stoic wisdom provides a roadmap. In the next section, we'll break down how to apply Stoicism to stop explaining yourself, equipping you with the tools to detach, protect your peace, and stand firm in your truth. How to apply Stoic wisdom to stop explaining yourself. Stoicism teaches us that true strength comes from within. When dealing with toxic people, the best defense is not engaging in their games. But how do you implement this in real life? Below are practical Stoic techniques to help you detach, maintain control, and protect your peace. 1. Master the art of indifference. Mastering the art of indifference is one of the most powerful applications of Stoic principles, particularly when dealing with toxic individuals who seek to manipulate your emotions. When you react emotionally, you hand them control over your inner peace. But when you remain indifferent, you reclaim that power. The essence of indifference lies in understanding that other people's opinions are beyond your control and therefore should not disturb your tranquility. Imagine someone falsely accusing you of something. The immediate impulse might be to argue, defend yourself, or seek validation from others. But the true Stoic response is a simple, composed, and unwavering, believe what you want. By refusing to engage in their game, you strip their words of any real power. Indifference does not mean apathy. It means choosing where to invest your emotional energy wisely. Every time you react to negativity, you give away a piece of your inner serenity. Instead, train yourself to ask, does this person's opinion change my reality? Does their approval or disapproval alter the truth? More often than not, the answer is no. By understanding this, you cultivate the ability to remain unmoved by external judgment. In today's world, this principle is more relevant than ever. Social media, for example, has created an environment where people are constantly seeking validation and reacting impulsively to criticism. One negative comment, and suddenly emotions spiral out of control. But consider the Stoic approach. Observe, but do not engage. Recognize that someone else's perception of you does not define who you are. A comment on the internet, an unfair judgment from a colleague, or even gossip among friends, none of these should shake your foundation. Seneca reminds us, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Most of the time, the pain caused by someone's words exists only in our minds because we allow it to. When you stop explaining yourself, when you cease justifying every decision to others, you experience true freedom. You no longer live at the mercy of external opinions. Instead, you live by your values, guided by reason and integrity. Indifference is not weakness. It is the highest form of self-mastery. It allows you to face conflict with a steady heart, to remain undisturbed in the face of provocation, and to walk away with your dignity intact. To cultivate this level of indifference, practice non-reactivity. When someone tries to bait you into an argument, pause, take a breath. Observe their words as though they were spoken in a foreign language, interesting but meaningless to your core self. This practice is not about suppressing emotions, but about refining them. The Stoics believed that true strength lies in restraint. Epictetus taught, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. In other words, it is not what is said to you that harms you, but your decision to let it affect you. This mindset shift is liberating. The more you exercise control over your reactions, the less control others have over you. The next time someone criticizes you unfairly or spreads falsehoods, remind yourself, their words do not change who you are. Choose to be indifferent, not out of arrogance, but out of wisdom. Let them talk, let them assume, let them misunderstand. You are not here to explain yourself to those who are committed to misjudging you. Instead, focus on your own path, your own values, and your own peace of mind. The reward of indifference is not isolation, but a deep, unshakable sense of inner freedom. Number 2, use silence as a weapon. You don't owe everyone an explanation. In a world where people feel entitled to your reasoning, the ability to remain silent is a power move. Not every accusation deserves a defense. Not every question requires an answer. Toxic people, manipulators, and those who seek control thrive on your words. They twist them, use them against you, and pull you into unnecessary battles. But here's the truth. The more you explain yourself, the more permission you give others to question you. So instead of falling into their trap, embrace strategic silence. When someone pressures you to justify your personal choices, resist the urge to over-explain. If a colleague pries into why you declined an invitation, simply respond, "That doesn't work for me." If a family member questions a major life decision, a calm, "That's just how I see it," is enough. No justification, no debate, no room for manipulation. When you say less, you maintain control. Consider this. A young professional, Alex, was constantly criticized by a group of co-workers for his decision to work late instead of going out for drinks. Every time he declined, they'd corner him saying, "Why are you so boring? What's wrong with just one drink?" At first, Alex tried explaining. He had a side business, he valued his health, he didn't enjoy late nights. But no matter what he said, they always had a counterpoint, a way to make him feel like he was in the wrong. Then, one day, he decided to stop justifying. The next time they pushed, he simply shrugged and said, "That's just what works for me." No frustration, no energy wasted. They quickly lost interest and moved on. Silence disarms people who seek to control you. It takes away their ammunition. So how can you apply this in your life? First, practice the pause. Before reacting to a demand for an explanation, ask yourself, is this worth my energy? More often than not, the answer will be no. Second, keep your responses short, neutral, and firm. Emotion fuels the fire of manipulators, so don't give them anything to work with. And third, remember, the less you explain, the less they can twist your words. By staying silent, you communicate self-assurance and confidence. What if you tried this approach the next time someone challenges you? Wouldn't it feel freeing to no longer be trapped in a cycle of endless justifications? Stoicism teaches us that our peace is not up for debate. Protect it with silence. Number 3. Set firm boundaries without explanation. You do not owe anyone an explanation for the choices you make to protect your peace. In a world that constantly demands justification, one of the most powerful Stoic lessons is learning to set firm boundaries without feeling the need to explain yourself. When you defend your decisions too much, you invite negotiation, as if your boundaries are up for debate. But true inner strength, the kind Stoicism teaches us, lies in quiet confidence, choosing what aligns with your values and standing by it without seeking external validation. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." The same applies to boundaries. You don't need to justify why you're saying no, distancing yourself from negativity, or prioritizing your well-being. Simply do it. Consider this. A manipulative friend asks, "Why don't you hang out with me anymore?" Your instinct might be to explain, to soften the truth, or to justify yourself, But a Stoic response is direct and firm. I'm focusing on other priorities right now. That's it. No debate, no justification, no permission needed. When you stop explaining yourself, you take back control of your life. Seneca reminds us, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." Your time and energy are precious, and not everyone deserves access to them. If you constantly stretch yourself thin trying to please others, you lose sight of what truly matters. Ask yourself, how many times have you over-explained your choices only to be met with resistance, judgment, or manipulation? And did explaining actually change anything? Stoicism teaches us that inner peace comes from self-mastery, not external approval. Saying no without guilt is an act of discipline, a practice of emotional resilience. You don't have to justify why you need time alone, why you've cut toxic people out, or why you refuse to engage in unnecessary drama. The moment you stop explaining, you reinforce your worth. You show others and yourself that your decisions are not requests, but choices made with clarity. This doesn't mean being cold or dismissive. It means valuing yourself enough to stand by what is best for you without seeking permission. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Not everyone will understand your boundaries, and that's okay. Their misunderstanding is not your problem to solve. What if someone insists on an explanation? What if they push back, making you feel like you owe them one? The truth is, you owe nothing except your integrity. Instead of engaging in endless justification, try this. A simple, "I appreciate your concern, but I've made my decision." This approach is not rude, it is self-respect. If they continue pushing, recognize that their persistence says more about their lack of respect for your boundaries than about your need to explain them. At what point do you stop seeking approval and start living by your own values? To apply this Stoic practice in daily life, start small. Say no to unnecessary obligations without over-explaining. Decline an invitation without a long-winded excuse. Express your choices with clarity, not defensiveness. And most importantly, remind yourself that people who truly respect you don't need explanations. They simply accept your decisions. True strength lies in quiet conviction, in the ability to walk away without looking back, in choosing yourself without guilt. As you refine this skill, you'll find something incredible happening. You'll gain respect, not just from others, but from yourself. And that, above all, is the foundation of a life lived with wisdom, purpose, and peace. If you've made it this far, you're already on the path to embracing true Stoic confidence. Comment, "I choose to embrace Stoic strength," below to affirm your commitment to living unapologetically. But don't stop now. Stay until the end to discover how to free yourself from the habit of over-explaining and step into quiet self-assurance. Number 4. Detach from external validation. One of the core lessons of Stoic philosophy is learning to detach from external validation and cultivate inner confidence. The need to explain yourself, to justify your choices, often stems from a desire for approval, an unconscious longing for acceptance that keeps you tethered to the judgments of others. But Marcus Aurelius reminds us in Meditations that what truly matters is how we govern ourselves, not how others perceive us. Stoic principles guide us to develop an unshakable foundation of self-worth, one that is independent of praise or criticism. Consider this. When someone questions your decisions or criticizes your path, what compels you to respond defensively? Is it a genuine need to clarify your stance, or is it the fear of being misunderstood, unaccepted, or judged? A Stoic understands that engaging in constant justification is a futile pursuit because opinions are fleeting, shaped by biases, and often out of our control. Instead of falling into the trap of endless explanations, practice the discipline of restraint. A simple response like, "I appreciate your perspective," followed by silent action, is often the most powerful statement you can make. Your integrity is not up for debate, nor does it require approval from external sources. Modern life, saturated with social media and public scrutiny, magnifies the pressure to explain oneself. Every choice, career shifts, lifestyle changes, personal beliefs, seems to invite unsolicited opinions. You post a decision online, and within moments, the world offers its critique. The temptation to defend your choices, to clarify, to prove yourself right, is overwhelming. But the Stoic approach is to step back and ask, why does this opinion matter? Does it change my reality? The moment you detach from the need to be liked, you reclaim your power. Seeking validation is a never-ending cycle because external approval is inconsistent and unreliable. One moment, the world applauds you. The next, it finds fault. If your peace of mind depends on such instability, you will forever be at its mercy. Instead, practice self-validation, align your actions with your values, and let that be enough. When your decisions stem from wisdom, integrity, and rational thought, they require no defense. This does not mean rejecting feedback altogether. Rather, it means developing the discernment to separate useful insights from noise. A Stoic welcomes constructive criticism that enhances their growth but disregards baseless judgment. No amount of explaining can control how others think, but you can control your own response. When you stop explaining yourself unnecessarily, you communicate something far more profound, unwavering confidence in your path. People sense this. They may not always agree with you, but they will respect the quiet assurance of someone who stands firm without needing approval. True freedom comes when you free yourself from the opinions of others and stand rooted in your own convictions. Let your actions speak louder than words, and let your peace come from within. The world will always have something to say, but a Stoic listens only to what truly matters. Number 5. Focus on what you can control. You don't owe anyone an explanation for how you live your life. Yet so often we find ourselves justifying our choices, defending our actions, and seeking approval from others who, in reality, may never understand or even care. Stoicism offers a liberating perspective. Focus on what you can control. You cannot control what others think, say, or believe about you. You cannot force them to see your truth. But what you can control is how you respond, where you place your energy, and whether you allow their opinions to dictate your peace. Think about it. How much time and energy do we waste trying to explain ourselves to people who have already made up their minds? Suppose you get a promotion at work, and suddenly the whispers begin. They don't deserve it. They must have connections. You hear the rumors, and the temptation to defend yourself is strong. But ask yourself, is proving my worth to them within my control? The answer is no. Your actions, your dedication, and your consistency already speak for themselves. Trying to change their perception is like shouting into the wind, effort wasted on something that was never yours to control in the first place. Instead, you focus on excelling in your new role, refining your skills, and letting your work be the loudest response. Over time, truth reveals itself, and those who matter will recognize it. A modern example of this is seen in the story of a young entrepreneur named Alex. Alex built a business from scratch, working late nights, sacrificing comfort, and pushing through countless setbacks. But as the business gained success, so did the critics. Friends, family, even strangers began to question it. It must be luck. They probably had help. Alex had two choices: waste time proving the struggle behind the success, or stay focused and keep moving forward. Instead of explaining, Alex let the results do the talking. The business grew, the doubters faded, and in the end, it wasn't words that proved Alex's worth, but actions. So how do you apply this in your life? Start with a simple but powerful question. Is this within my control? If not, let it go. If someone misunderstands you, if they twist your words, if they judge you unfairly, that's their burden to carry, not yours. Your energy is too valuable to be spent on battles that don't serve your growth. Redirect that energy toward what truly matters: your goals, your inner peace, your personal development. Instead of convincing others, become so grounded in your own values that explanations become unnecessary. The world will always have opinions, and people will always talk. But the wise do not waste time chasing approval. They live with integrity, they act with purpose, and they let their character be their voice. So, the next time you feel the urge to justify yourself, pause. Ask yourself, does this serve my growth? If not, walk away with the quiet confidence of someone who understands the most valuable truth of all. Your life is yours, and that alone is enough. Number 6. Let your actions speak louder than words. When you truly embrace Stoicism, you come to understand that words are cheap. Actions are what define a person. The more you explain yourself, the more you dilute the power of your choices. A Stoic does not waste time justifying their every decision, because their life itself is the ultimate proof of their character. Epictetus put it simply: don't explain your philosophy, embody it. That means you don't need to tell people you are disciplined, honest, or strong-willed. Let them see it in the way you live. The world doesn't judge you by what you say, it judges you by what you do. And if your actions are aligned with your principles, no explanation is necessary. Consider this: if you refuse to participate in gossip at work, does it really matter if others question you? If you always show up early and put in extra effort, do you need to justify your work ethic? If you choose to live simply rather than chasing status, should you explain yourself to those who don't understand? The answer is no. The more you try to explain yourself, the more power you give others to question your values. People don't need your words. They need to see you stand firm in your decisions. Talking about your values means nothing if your actions don't reflect them. In every aspect of life, from work to relationships, people respect consistency more than they respect words. Think about the leaders, mentors, or figures you admire. Are they the ones who constantly explain themselves? Or are they the ones who move through life with quiet certainty, allowing their actions to do the talking? When you lead by example, you don't have to convince anyone of your worth or integrity. It becomes self-evident. Those who need explanations are often looking for a way to challenge or undermine you, not to understand you. Seneca wisely said, "He who is brave is free." True freedom is living according to your values, without feeling the need to seek approval or justification. Explaining yourself too much can also weaken your position. Every time you defend your choices, you signal that you are unsure of them, that you need external validation. But confidence isn't loud, it's quiet, steady, and unwavering. A Stoic understands that the strongest statement they can make is not a long-winded explanation, but a life lived with unwavering principle. If your choices are based on wisdom and integrity, let time be your witness. Let people wonder. Let them speculate. Let them come to their own conclusions. Your task is not to explain, it's to act. So next time you feel the urge to justify yourself, stop and ask, will this explanation add anything to my actions? If the answer is no, stay silent and move forward. The world will always have opinions, but opinions don't change the truth. The truth is in what you do, not in what you say. And when you live by that truth, you won't need to explain yourself. Your actions will speak for you, louder than words ever could. This is the Stoic way. You've already taken the first step toward mastering self-discipline and inner peace. Show your commitment to living with confidence and clarity by commenting, "I cultivate Stoic power in my life." But there's more. Stay until the end to learn the key Stoic strategies that will help you stop explaining yourself and start living on your own terms. Number 7. Embrace the power of emotional detachment. Embracing the power of emotional detachment is one of the most liberating applications of Stoic principles, freeing us from the exhausting need to explain ourselves to those who are not seeking understanding but control. Detachment does not mean apathy or emotional suppression, but rather cultivating an inner resilience that prevents external opinions from dictating your state of mind. This principle is particularly relevant when faced with the expectation to justify yourself, when others challenge your choices, question your path, or impose their own standards upon you. In modern life, this pressure is relentless. Society expects conformity, families demand explanations, and social media turns every decision into a spectacle. But why do we feel compelled to explain? Because we tie our sense of worth to external validation, fearing rejection or judgment. A Stoic, however, understands that approval is fleeting, subjective, and ultimately irrelevant to the pursuit of virtue. Imagine making a decision that prioritizes your well-being, perhaps leaving a corporate job to pursue a passion, choosing solitude over forced relationships, or setting firm boundaries with toxic people. Immediately, questions arise. Why would you do that? Are you sure? That doesn't make sense. The emotionally attached person scrambles to justify, bending their words to fit into the expectations of others. But the Stoic does not. They acknowledge the inquiry, but they do not absorb its emotional weight. Their confidence is rooted in clarity, not in the need to be understood. How does one cultivate such detachment? First, by practicing inner dialogue. When the urge to explain arises, ask yourself, do I truly need this person's approval? Most of the time the answer is no. Others' expectations do not define your reality, and recognizing this is the first step toward freedom. Second, adopting the observer's mindset creates distance between your emotions and external provocations. Visualize yourself as a neutral spectator, watching the conversation unfold from the outside. When someone questions your choices, do not react impulsively. Observe, assess, and respond with clarity rather than emotion. Third, lower the stakes in your mind. Many feel the need to explain because they overestimate the significance of others' opinions. But ask yourself, will this matter in a week, a year, 10 years? In most cases, the answer is no. Most judgments are fleeting, and in time, those who question you will move on to other concerns. Fourth, accept that you cannot control perception. No matter how much you explain yourself, some will still misunderstand, disapprove, or resist your choices. The more you seek approval, the more power you surrender. Instead, embrace Epictetus's wisdom. If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth, by which no one was ever truly harmed. Focus on truth and principle, not on appeasing the shifting opinions of others. Lastly, develop a mantra for emotional distance. When pressured to justify yourself, ground yourself with a simple phrase like, "Their opinion is theirs, my path is mine." This creates an immediate mental boundary, protecting your peace. Emotional detachment is powerful because it removes the invisible chains that bind you to external expectations. It allows you to act out of reason and principle rather than fear and insecurity. Seneca aptly stated, "The greatest wealth is a poverty of desires." When you detach from the need for approval, you gain something infinitely more valuable, unshakable peace. The next time you feel compelled to explain yourself, pause. Ask yourself, am I speaking from principle or from attachment? If it's the latter, let go. Walk away with quiet confidence, knowing that the only validation you need is your own. This is the ultimate Stoic freedom. Number 8. Develop an unshakable sense of self. At the core of Stoic wisdom lies the principle of self-mastery, an unshakable sense of self that renders external validation unnecessary. When you know who you are, what you stand for, and where you're headed, the opinions of others become background noise. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself because your confidence is deeply rooted in your own principles rather than the shifting perspectives of the world. One of the biggest reasons people over-explain is insecurity. When we doubt our own choices, we seek reassurance from others. But a Stoic man does not ask the world for permission to be himself. He decides his values, aligns his actions accordingly, and lets his character be the proof of his convictions. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." If your thoughts are grounded in wisdom, discipline, and purpose, there is no need to justify them to anyone. Imagine two people taking the same unconventional path, perhaps leaving a stable career to pursue something more meaningful. The first person constantly explains themselves to others, trying to convince family and friends that they've made the right decision. The second person simply does the work, making progress in silence, unbothered by external judgment. Over time, who commands more respect? The one who feels the need to defend themselves, or the one who moves forward without seeking approval? Developing an unshakable sense of self requires 3 key Stoic disciplines. First, practice self-reflection. Every day ask yourself, am I living according to my values? Journaling, meditating, or simply taking a quiet moment to assess your actions builds internal clarity. When you are sure of your own direction, the opinions of others lose their weight. Second, embrace self-reliance. The more you depend on others to validate your choices, the more fragile your confidence becomes. Seneca stated, "A wise man is content with himself." This doesn't mean isolation, but rather the ability to stand alone in your convictions without needing a crowd to support you. Third, accept that not everyone will understand your path. A Stoic knows that the masses will always resist those who break away from convention. But does misunderstanding from others change the truth? Not at all. If your choices are based on reason and virtue, explanations are unnecessary. You owe clarity to yourself, not to those who question your journey. A modern example of this is seen in those who choose an unconventional lifestyle. Consider someone who decides to prioritize minimalism over material success. Society may question them. Why don't you want more? Why aren't you chasing status? A person with an unshakable sense of self does not feel compelled to explain. They understand their reasons, and that is enough. Over time, their quiet confidence speaks louder than any justification ever could. Stop explaining yourself to toxic people, and you take back your peace, energy, and self-respect. True strength lies in standing firm without seeking approval. Your actions will speak louder than words. If this video resonated with you, like, share, and subscribe to Stoic Secrets for more wisdom on living with strength and clarity. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss our next video. Stay strong, stay grounded, and live on your own terms. When they can't control you, they try this instead. Modern Stoicism. Welcome to Stoic Secrets. Have you noticed how people change the moment they can't control you? They don't walk away, they switch tactics, guilt-tripping, twisting your words, spreading doubt, subtle tricks to pull you back under their influence. And if you're not careful, you might fall for them. Stoicism teaches that real power is in refusing to be controlled. But are you truly free, or are you still reacting to their games? Stay until the end. The last tactic is the most dangerous. Let's begin. Number 1. They try to manipulate you. When people realize they can't control you, they don't simply walk away. Instead, they shift their tactics. Control is a form of power, and when someone loses direct authority over you, they resort to manipulation. Some individuals thrive on shaping others to fit their needs, dictating their actions, and influencing their decisions. But when they see that you remain independent, that you don't bend easily to their will, they adjust their strategy. Instead of overt commands, they employ subtle coercion, using guilt, flattery, or even playing the victim to pressure you into compliance. This is where Stoic principles come into play. Your ability to master your own emotions and not let others dictate your state of mind. Manipulators seek to make you feel responsible for their feelings, twisting situations to serve their advantage. They might say, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me." Or they flatter you with insincere praise. "You're so good at this, I don't know what I'd do without you." And if guilt and praise fail, they create urgency or cast themselves as the victim, making it seem like you are their only hope. But if you see these tactics for what they are, attempts to undermine your autonomy, you remove their influence over you. The key to breaking free from manipulation is not resistance, but detachment. Lao Tzu wisely said, "He who controls others may be powerful, but he who has mastered himself is mightier still." Emotional self-mastery is your greatest defense. Manipulative people thrive on emotional reactions, whether it's guilt, fear, or doubt. The moment you recognize their game and refuse to engage, you strip them of their power. It's like a game of chess. Every move they make is designed to force a reaction, to lure you into making a mistake. They expect you to panic, to explain yourself, to give in. But what happens if you don't react? If you remain calm, observe their tactics, and refuse to be provoked? They lose control. Their strategy crumbles. When you understand this, you stop being a pawn in their game. I recall a time when someone frequently twisted situations in their favor. One day, they asked me for a favor I wasn't comfortable with. When I declined, they sighed dramatically and said, "Wow, I thought we were closer than that." Immediately I felt the familiar twinge of guilt, the pressure to justify my decision. But instead of explaining, I simply smiled and said, "I know what you're doing." That one sentence shifted the entire dynamic. Their face changed. They stammered, tried to laugh it off, but I didn't engage. That was the last time they attempted to manipulate me. This is the power of awareness. Once you see manipulation for what it is, it loses its hold over you. Manipulative people rely on the fact that most people will feel obligated to explain, defend, or apologize. But when you stop playing their game, they have nothing left to control. So how do you deal with manipulative people? First, recognize the signs. If someone is making you feel guilty, pressured, or obligated, pause and ask yourself, is this a genuine request, or is this manipulation? The ability to discern the difference is crucial. Second, remain calm and firm. The less emotional your response, the less control they have over you. They want you to react, to defend, to plead, to compromise. Instead, give them nothing to latch onto. Finally, refuse to engage in their game. You don't owe them an explanation, an argument, or proof of your loyalty. A simple, unwavering no is enough. Marcus Aurelius teaches us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. At the end of the day, manipulation only works when you allow it to. The moment you stop justifying yourself, stop explaining, and stop feeling responsible for someone else's emotions, you take back control. The greatest form of power is not over others, but over yourself. So master your emotions, stand firm in your decisions, and remember, your life, your choices, belong to you alone. Number 2, they spread lies about you. When people realize they can't control you, they often turn to one of the lowest tactics available. They spread lies. Instead of confronting you directly or accepting that they have no power over you, they create false stories, twist the truth, and attempt to turn others against you. It's not about what's real, it's about control. They know they can't manipulate your mind or decisions, so they attack your reputation instead. Why? Because they believe if they can't own you, they can at least ruin how others see you. But here's the reality. False narratives are the tools of the weak. When someone lacks facts or integrity, they resort to gossip, exaggeration, and deception. They don't need their lies to be true. They just need them to create enough doubt, enough noise to make you react. Because the moment you engage, they win. They've dragged you into their game, and now you're wasting energy defending yourself instead of living your life. But here's the truth. Real power lies in not reacting. Imagine you're standing in a storm and someone is throwing mud at you. If you start flailing, trying to wipe it off immediately, you'll only smear it further, making yourself look even messier. But if you stand firm, let the mud dry, and simply dust it off when the storm passes, you walk away untouched. Lies work the same way. The more you fight them, the more attention you bring to them. But when you remain steady, when you refuse to be rattled, the lies lose their power. Marcus Aurelius put it simply, if you are unaffected by what is said, you have already won. And that's the key. The moment you stop caring about what others say, you strip away their control. The truth does not need a defense. It speaks for itself. I remember a story about a man who built a business from the ground up. He was honest, hard-working, and respected, until someone with a grudge started spreading rumors. They whispered that he was corrupt, that his success was built on lies. At first he was tempted to fight back, to publicly prove them wrong, but instead he chose a different approach. He kept showing up. He kept doing good work. He let his character speak louder than their words. Over time, the rumors faded. Why? Because people saw the truth with their own eyes. And the one who spread the lies, they were exposed for what they were, a bitter, envious person trying to tear down what they could never build. Lies have a short lifespan, but the truth lasts forever. So how do you handle people who spread lies? First, don't engage. The moment you argue, you give their words weight. Second, let your character be your response. People will believe actions over rumors in the long run. And finally, understand that when someone spreads lies about you, they're telling the world more about themselves than about you. A person who needs to manipulate the truth to bring you down has already lost. Their desperation is their weakness. At the end of the day, false words hold no power unless you give them attention. So stand firm, stay silent, and let the truth do what it always does. Rise to the surface, because those who rely on lies always lose in the end. And you walk away with your integrity intact, untouched by their attempts to drag you down. So ask yourself, are you going to let someone else's lies dictate your path? Or will you stand firm and let your actions prove who you really are? Number 3, they play the victim. When people can't control you, they resort to manipulation, and one of the most common insidious tactics, playing the victim. Instead of owning up to their actions, they twist the narrative, painting themselves as the one who's been wronged while subtly casting you as the villain. Why? Because if they can't control you directly, they'll control how others perceive you. This is not about seeking justice, it's about evading responsibility. They exaggerate, distort facts, and spin a story designed to win sympathy and rally support. The more you try to defend yourself, the deeper you sink into their trap. Suddenly, you're the aggressor, and they're the poor, helpless victim soaking up all the validation. And that's exactly what you must do in these situations. Master your emotions, because that's where your true power lies. Think about it. How often have you seen someone pull this act? Maybe in the workplace, a family dispute, or even among friends. They manipulate the emotions of those around them, ensuring they always have an audience ready to take their side. But here's the truth. People who fake victimhood thrive on reactions. They need you to engage, to fight back, to prove your innocence, because that keeps the drama alive. But what happens if you don't give them that satisfaction? If you refuse to argue, refuse to explain yourself, refuse to play their game? You strip them of their power. Epictetus wisely taught, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. When you react emotionally, you hand them the very control they crave. But if you remain unmoved, they lose their grip on you entirely. I once dealt with someone who always played the victim when confronted. No matter how much harm they caused, the moment they were held accountable, they would act stunned, pretending they were being unfairly attacked. And they were convincing. They spun the story, told others how I had wronged them, and suddenly I was the bad guy. At first, I felt the urge to fight back, to defend my reputation. But then I remembered a key Stoic lesson. The truth does not need defending. So, I stayed silent. I let my actions speak louder than my words. And over time, the truth revealed itself. Their lies started to contradict each other, their behavior exposed their real character, and the people who initially sided with them began to see through the act. Because no matter how much someone distorts reality, truth has a way of surfacing on its own. So, how do you handle people who play the victim? First, don't engage. Any argument, any defense, only fuels their performance. Second, let time and their own actions expose them, because the more they lie, the more tangled they become. Third, protect your energy. You don't owe explanations to those who are committed to misunderstanding you. As Seneca reminds us, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. If you allow their tactics to consume your mind, you're giving them power over your peace. Instead, stay calm, stay quiet. Let reality do the talking. Manipulators use victimhood as a weapon, but only if you give them an audience. The best response? Indifference. Because in the end, truth always outlasts performance, and those who rely on deception will eventually be undone by it. Now ask yourself, how much of your energy has been wasted trying to defend yourself to people who never intended to hear the truth? What if, instead of reacting, you embraced the Stoic mindset and simply let go? What if, instead of fighting their lies, you trusted in time, in character, in reality itself? Because when you stop feeding the fire, it burns out on its own, and that is how you truly win. If you've made it this far, you're already taking steps toward true independence, where no one can control your mind or your choices. Comment below with unbreakable mind to affirm your commitment to living with resilience and inner strength. But don't stop here. There's more wisdom ahead. Stay until the end to uncover the powerful strategies that will help you navigate life with unshakable confidence. Number 4. They try to isolate you. When people can't control you, they don't always fight you head-on. Instead, they employ more insidious tactics, one of the most calculated being isolation. They don't argue with your independence directly. They work in the shadows, spreading doubt, twisting your words, and subtly poisoning the minds of those around you. Their goal is not just to challenge you, it's to cut you off, to make you feel alone and vulnerable. Why? Because an isolated person is easier to manipulate. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do, only what you do. The more control-driven people sense that you are independent, the more they see it as a threat. Instead of facing you outright, they create rifts in your relationships, planting seeds of suspicion and division so that when you look around, you see fewer and fewer allies. It's a coward's strategy, but an effective one, if you don't recognize it for what it is. Much like how predators in the wild separate their prey from the pack before striking, manipulators aim to weaken you by ensuring you are alone. A person surrounded by strong, genuine connections is much harder to control, but the isolated, they become dependent, seeking validation, reassurance, and belonging, which is exactly what these manipulators want. Seneca warned of this when he said, "Associate only with those who improve you. Avoid those who would pull you down." This is the essence of Stoic principles, choosing wisely who we allow into our lives, because the wrong influences can erode our peace, distort our reality, and make us question our own worth. True strength lies in knowing that no one can take your self-worth unless you allow it. The people who attempt to isolate you want you to feel powerless, but the truth is, they fear your resilience. The moment you understand this, you strip them of their power. I once knew someone who played this exact game. It started subtly, offhand remarks, small doubts they would whisper to mutual acquaintances. "I don't know if you can really trust them," they'd say, just planting the idea. Then came the exaggerations, the distortions of my words. The more I tried to set the record straight, the more I realized that my defense only fueled their scheme. That's when I understood the most powerful counter to isolation isn't confrontation, it's authenticity. So instead of fighting their deception head-on, I focused on strengthening my real connections. I let my actions speak louder than their manipulations, and over time, the truth revealed itself. The people who truly knew me remained, those who believed the lies. They were never my people to begin with. This is how you handle those who try to isolate you. First, stay calm. Reacting emotionally only gives them more fuel. Second, nurture your real relationships. The people who truly know you won't be fooled forever. Third, don't chase those who turn away. If someone is so easily swayed against you, let them go. They were never meant to be in your life long term. Lastly, remember that no one can truly isolate you unless you allow them to. Your strength doesn't come from numbers, it comes from within. As Epictetus wisely put it, the more we value things outside our control, the less control we have. And your peace. That's something no manipulator should ever be allowed to touch. At the end of the day, those who fear your independence will try to make you feel alone. But their power is an illusion. Stay grounded in who you are, keep your connection strong, and most importantly, never let someone else's deception define your reality, because real relationships, built on trust and authenticity, do not fall apart because of someone else's lies. Number 5. They wait for you to fail. Some people don't want to see you win, they just want to see you fall. They might smile at your success, nod at your ambitions, even tell you, "I'm happy for you." but deep down, they're waiting, not for your rise, but for your failure. Why? Because your growth unsettles them. Your drive reminds them of their own stagnation, and when they can't control you, they turn to something else. They hope you'll trip, stumble, and confirm their quiet doubts. That's the game they play. They don't clap because they support you. They clap because they're keeping score. And when life throws you a challenge, they're the first to whisper, "I knew it." That's why one of the greatest Stoic secrets is this. True strength isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. Your journey, your effort, and your growth are not for them to judge. They are for you to own. Think of it like an iron mind standing against the storm. A weak tree bends and breaks in the wind, but a tree with deep roots stands firm, no matter how violently the storm rages. The people hoping for your failure? They are the wind. They howl, they push, they test your balance. But the only way they can break you is if you let them. That's why the greatest Stoic rule is not to waste energy on those who secretly root against you. Epictetus said it best. Do not waste energy on those who hope for your downfall. Your focus should be on growth, not proving people wrong, and that's where modern Stoicism comes in. It teaches us that our strength isn't in silencing our critics, but in ignoring them altogether. Your success should not be fueled by their doubts. It should be built on your own unwavering discipline. I once knew someone who claimed to support me, but always planted little seeds of doubt. Are you sure this will work? Or, I hope it does, but let's see. At first, I brushed it off, but over time, I noticed a pattern. Every time I struggled, they were quick to remind me how difficult things were. And when I failed, even slightly, they were the first to say, "See, it's not that easy." That's when I realized they were never truly on my side. They weren't rooting for my success. They were waiting for my failure. And when I finally succeeded, they had nothing to say. No congratulations, just silence. And that silence was louder than any fake support they had ever given. So how do you deal with people like this? First, recognize the signs. If someone only appears when you're struggling, but is nowhere to be found when you're winning, that's your first clue. Second, stop wasting energy trying to prove yourself to them. Your success is not about showing them they were wrong. It's about showing yourself what you're capable of. And finally, let success be your response. Keep moving forward, keep evolving, keep growing. Because nothing unsettles them more than seeing you rise after they swore you'd fall. The world will always have those who doubt, criticize, or wait for your failure. But their opinions mean nothing unless you give them power. In the end, the only thing that matters is how strong you stand, how deeply rooted you are in your purpose, and how unwavering your focus remains. That is modern Stoicism. That is the iron mind. That is the Stoic way. Number 6. They copy you. When people can't control you, they try to become you. That's one of the oldest tactics in the book, and if you've ever had someone copy your every move, you know how frustrating it can be. At first it seems harmless, just a coincidence. You take a risk, make a bold decision, introduce a fresh idea, and suddenly someone else is doing the same thing as if it were their own. But after a while it's clear they aren't trying to compete, they're trying to imitate. Because when they can't overpower you, they attempt to absorb your success as if it were their own. And that's the thing about imitation. It's always a step behind. A shadow can follow the light, but it will never shine on its own. This is where Stoicism teaches us a crucial lesson. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The people who mimic you aren't obstacles. They are proof that you are forging a path worth following. It's easy to feel annoyed when someone copies your ideas, your style, or even your mindset. But ask yourself, why do they do it? Because deep down, they lack the confidence to be original. They see in you something they don't have: courage, vision, and the ability to carve out your own destiny. They believe that by imitating your steps, they will find the same success. But what they don't understand is that success isn't in the steps, it's in the mind that takes them. Seneca put it perfectly. Character, not imitation, makes a person. You can mimic actions, but you cannot copy depth, wisdom, or authenticity, and that's the difference between a leader and a follower. A true leader isn't worried about who's copying them, because they know their strength lies in their ability to adapt and grow. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how those who rely on imitation always seem to struggle when the original moves on? That's because their foundation is weak. They're not building something of their own. They're simply reacting to what already exists. I once had someone in my life who copied everything I did. If I started a new habit, they picked it up. If I tried a new venture, they suddenly had the same interest. At first, it was irritating. It felt like my effort was being stolen, like my originality was being diluted. But then I realized this wasn't a threat. It was validation. If someone is copying you, it means you're ahead. The moment I changed direction, took a new approach, and started thinking in ways they couldn't predict, they were lost. Because that's the thing about imitation. It doesn't prepare you for change. So how do you deal with people like this? The first step is to stop giving them your energy. Every minute spent worrying about imitators is a minute stolen from your own growth. The second step: keep evolving. Don't stay stagnant just because someone is trying to catch up. Keep learning, keep pushing, keep growing, because the more you change, the harder it becomes for anyone to follow. And the final step is to recognize what imitation really is: insecurity in disguise. When someone copies you, it's not because they admire you, it's because they don't believe in themselves enough to be original. Epictetus reminds us, if you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. True progress means being so focused on your own path that you don't have time to look over your shoulder. Let the imitators struggle to keep up, because no one can replace what makes you unique. At the end of the day, a copy is just that, a copy. It fades, it lacks substance, and it will never outlast the original. So keep leading, keep evolving, and let the world see the difference between a shadow and the sun. What about you? Have you ever had someone try to imitate your every move? How did you handle it? Have you ever had someone copy everything you do? It can be frustrating, but remember, imitation is just insecurity in disguise. Drop a comment. Leaders create, followers imitate. Let's see how many real leaders we have here. Number 7. They provoke you emotionally. Let's talk about one of the oldest and most effective strategies used when someone realizes they can't control you: provoking you emotionally. When manipulation, logic, or guilt-tripping fail, they resort to the last weapon in their arsenal: pushing your buttons. They'll say things not to engage in a real discussion, but to frustrate, insult, and enrage you. They're not looking for truth. They're looking for a reaction. And once they get that reaction, they've won. The moment you snap, you give them the perfect excuse to paint you as the bad guy, while they step back and play the victim. Suddenly, the narrative shifts. Not because they were right, but because you lost control. This is a tactic as old as time, and yet so many people fall for it. But here's where the Stoic secrets come into play: learning how to remain unshaken, to develop an iron mind, to refuse to dance to someone else's tune. Imagine you're in a heated debate, and someone keeps twisting your words, mocking your beliefs, or bringing up past mistakes just to get a rise out of you. You feel the anger creeping in, your pulse quickens, and you're ready to strike back. But what happens if you don't? What happens if you pause, breathe, and simply say, "That's an interesting perspective," with a calm smile? At that moment, you rob them of their power. They were expecting an explosion, but instead they get silence. And silence in this game is the most powerful move you can make. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great minds of modern Stoicism, once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." That's the essence of the Stoic rules. If someone wants you to lose control, the greatest victory is to stay in command of yourself. Your emotions belong to you. No one else should have the power to dictate them. There's a story about a man named James who worked in a high-stress corporate job. He had a colleague, Mark, who always seemed to enjoy provoking him, pointing out his mistakes in meetings, making sarcastic remarks, and exaggerating every small flaw. One day, Mark made an especially sharp comment in front of their boss, trying to embarrass James. Everyone in the room expected James to fire back, to defend himself, to lash out, but instead, James just nodded and said, "That's an interesting take, Mark. I'll consider that." And then he continued with his presentation as if nothing happened. Mark was left speechless. The boss noticed Mark's unprofessional behavior, and over time, his credibility crumbled, not James's. James followed the iron mind approach, refusing to be baited, refusing to hand over control of his emotions, and in the end, he won, not by attacking, but by mastering himself. So, how do you handle people who try to provoke you emotionally? First, recognize the game. If someone is pushing your buttons, ask yourself, are they looking for a real conversation, or do they just want a reaction? The answer is often the latter. Second, control your response. If you feel emotions rising, take a breath before speaking. Let the pause be your power. Third, know when to walk away. Some battles aren't worth fighting, and true strength comes from choosing where to invest your energy. Not every argument deserves your time, and some fights are best won by simply refusing to engage. At the end of the day, those who try to control you through emotional manipulation thrive on your reaction. Don't give it to them. Stay calm, stay detached, and let them burn themselves out. Because the strongest person in the room is always the one who refuses to be controlled. If this message resonates with you, leave a comment with Stoic mindset, and let's keep learning together. Your support keeps this journey going, and I hope these Stoic secrets help you cultivate an iron mind in a world full of provocations. Thank you for being part of this path to inner mastery. Number 8. They challenge your confidence. When people can't control you, they resort to something far more insidious. They challenge your confidence. Not through open confrontation, but through subtle, calculated doubt. They won't say, "You're wrong." Instead, they'll ask, "Are you sure?" They'll make you second-guess your choices, undermine your judgment, and plant the kind of uncertainty that slowly chips away at your self-belief. And why? Because when you doubt yourself, you become easier to manipulate. This is one of the Stoic secrets to maintaining an iron mind, understanding that external doubt only has power if you allow it to. Imagine a builder constructing a house on solid ground. He knows his foundation is strong, but what if every day someone came by and said, "That looks a little unstable. Are you sure it won't collapse?" At first, he ignores them, but over time, the repetition starts to sink in. He rechecks his work, second-guesses his own skills, and before long, he's hesitating with every nail and every brick. Not because the foundation changed, but because someone else made him question it. That's how confidence is stolen, not by force, but by suggestion. This is what manipulators do when they can't control you directly. They shake your certainty, hoping you'll come running to them for validation. But here's where modern Stoicism holds the key. Epictetus once said, "A person's worth is not determined by external approval. True confidence doesn't come from others agreeing with you. It comes from trusting yourself." Think about the people in history who refused to let others define their decisions. The leaders, the visionaries, the pioneers. They weren't unshaken because no one questioned them. They were unshaken because they didn't need external validation. They followed the Stoic rules of self-reliance and inner conviction. I remember a time when someone constantly questioned my choices. No matter what I did, they'd raise an eyebrow and say, "That seems risky." At first, I fell into the trap. I explained myself, justified my decisions, and tried to prove I was right. But then it hit me. They weren't questioning me because they had better insight. They were doing it to make me hesitant. So one day, I simply stopped explaining. When they asked, "Are you sure?" I answered, "Yes." No justification, no debate, just certainty. And in that moment, their power over me vanished. That's the secret. Confidence doesn't need to argue. It doesn't need permission. It simply stands firm. And when you stop seeking validation from others, you become unshakable. So, how do you handle people who challenge your confidence? First, trust yourself. If your decision is based on reason and experience, stand by it. Second, stop over-explaining. The more you justify yourself, the more they'll poke holes in your certainty. Lastly, remember this. Their doubt is their tool, not your truth. Just because someone questions you doesn't mean you're wrong. At the end of the day, your confidence is your power. People will challenge it, test it, and try to weaken it, but only if you let them. An iron mind isn't built by never facing doubt. It's built by standing firm in the face of it. So, trust yourself, move forward without hesitation, and never let someone else's uncertainty become your own. The real power lies in knowing who you are and refusing to let anyone shake that foundation. At the end of the day, people who can't control you will always find new ways to try. They will manipulate, lie, isolate, provoke, and challenge your confidence. They will wait for your failure and even attempt to become you. But their tactics all rely on one thing: your reaction. The greatest lesson in Stoicism is this: you cannot control others, but you can always control yourself. When you refuse to engage, when you stand firm in your values, and when you stop seeking approval from those who wish to control you, their power over you crumbles. This is what it means to cultivate an iron mind, to be unshakable in the face of manipulation. So ask yourself, are you still playing their game, or have you already won by walking away? The answer lies in your ability to master yourself. But how do you ensure that no one can ever manipulate or control you again? How do you build a mindset so strong that no external force can shake it? That's exactly what we'll cover in the next part. How to break free from control and become unshakable. How to break free from control and become unshakable. Control is the ultimate game, and those who seek to dominate others will never stop looking for ways to do so. They will manipulate, deceive, and provoke, hoping to bend you to their will. But here's the truth: no one can control you unless you give them the power to do so. The key to freedom lies in your response, or rather, your refusal to respond. Stoicism teaches that while you cannot dictate the actions of others, you can always master yourself. In this journey, we'll uncover how to break free from control, cultivate an unshakable mindset, and reclaim your power once and for all. Number 1. Mastering inner strength. To break free from control and become unshakable, you must cultivate inner strength rather than reacting impulsively to external forces. Those who seek control over you often resort to emotional manipulation, guilt-tripping, sowing doubt, or isolating you from support. Their power thrives on your reactions, but the moment you refuse to play their game, you reclaim your autonomy. This is the essence of true strength. Not in bending the world to your will, but in mastering yourself. As Epictetus reminds us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. When you cease to be emotionally swayed by others, you become unshakable. The first step is awareness, recognizing when someone is trying to manipulate you and resisting the instinct to retaliate. Instead of responding with anger or defensiveness, choose calm observation. Pause and assess. Is my reaction truly necessary, or am I merely playing into their hands? This ability to step back and reflect rather than react is what separates those who are easily controlled from those who are resolute. To build this kind of resilience, you must cultivate emotional discipline. People will push your buttons, but you decide whether or not to let them. When someone provokes you, don't give them the satisfaction of seeing you flustered. Instead, ask yourself, does this deserve my energy? Most conflicts lose their power when met with indifference. This doesn't mean suppressing your emotions. It means mastering them. The world will always be filled with chaos, manipulations, and provocations, but your peace depends on whether you let these things penetrate your mind. Developing a Stoic mindset allows you to detach your happiness from others' words and actions. The moment you tie your emotional well-being to external forces, you give them control. Instead, anchor your peace in something internal, your principles, your character, your sense of self. This shift in perspective changes everything. When you stop expecting fairness from others, you stop being disappointed. When you stop seeking validation from those who wish to control you, you stop being dependent. This doesn't mean becoming cold or indifferent. It means choosing where to invest your emotional energy wisely. In today's world, where social media and external opinions constantly bombard us, this skill is more valuable than ever. Every time you react emotionally to an insult, a criticism, or an attempt to manipulate you, you hand over your power. But when you train yourself to remain steady in the face of such tactics, you become immune to their control. This is why the Stoics practiced premeditatio malorum, mentally preparing for difficulties before they arise. Expect that people will test you, anticipate their tactics, and decide in advance how you will respond. The goal is not to suppress emotions, but to control how you express them. A powerful way to reinforce this mindset is to develop self-reliance. The less you depend on others for emotional stability, the harder it is for them to manipulate you. Strengthen your independence by building a strong sense of purpose and self-worth that isn't dictated by outside approval. Seneca said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Challenges, including manipulative people, are opportunities to refine your strength. Instead of seeing them as threats, view them as training grounds for resilience. Each time you refuse to let someone else dictate your emotions, you grow stronger. In modern life, this translates to everything, from workplace politics to personal relationships. Those who seek to control you will notice when you no longer respond predictably, and they will either change their tactics or lose interest in controlling you altogether. By mastering your reactions, you create a shield against manipulation, fostering an unshakable mind. The world will test you, but your response determines whether you remain a puppet or become the master of your fate. And in the end, true freedom lies not in changing others, but in ensuring that nothing outside of you can disturb the peace within. Number 2, use silence as a form of power. Silence is one of the most powerful weapons in your arsenal, a tool of control, a shield of resilience, and a statement of strength. In a world where people seek to provoke, manipulate, or control you, mastering the art of silence grants you an iron mind, one that cannot be shaken by the noise of others. Think about it. When someone gossips about you, trying to pull you into their web of drama, what do they expect? A reaction, a defense, a counterattack. But when you give them nothing, when you refuse to feed the fire, it dies out. Silence confuses them, unsettles them, and most importantly, strips them of the power they think they have over you. This is a Stoic secret, one that warriors, thinkers, and leaders have used throughout history. Modern Stoicism teaches us that true power isn't about controlling others, it's about refusing to be controlled by them. Look at the story of Marcus, a young entrepreneur who built his business from the ground up. As his success grew, so did his enemies, competitors, former colleagues, and even so-called friends who couldn't stand to see him thrive. They spread rumors, whispered lies, and waited for his reaction, hoping to shake him. But Marcus had mastered a fundamental Stoic rule. He understood that engaging in the fight would only validate their words. So he remained silent, focused on his work, and let time do its job. Months passed, and those who once talked behind his back had no more fuel to burn. Their words had faded, their control over him shattered, because he never gave them what they wanted: his energy, his anger, his peace. This is the power of silence. It's not passivity, it's a conscious choice to rise above the noise. You may ask, but what if someone directly confronts me? What if they demand a response? The answer is simple. Not every battle is worth fighting. When provoked, pause and ask yourself, does engaging with this person bring value to my life? Or am I simply feeding into their game? Silence doesn't mean weakness. It means control. It means choosing your battles wisely. Imagine a chess master. Does he react impulsively to every move, number? He calculates, he waits, he chooses when and how to respond. This is how you must approach life. When faced with gossip, let the truth reveal itself over time. When someone tries to provoke you, smile and walk away, showing them that their words hold no weight. When someone attempts to manipulate your emotions, meet them with indifference, because the moment you stop reacting, you stop being controlled. This is the essence of an iron mind, one that remains steady in the storm, unfazed by the chaos around it. Ask yourself, how many times have you wasted energy fighting battles that didn't matter? How often have you let someone's words dictate your emotions? True freedom begins when you stop allowing external forces to dictate your inner state. Your peace is yours to protect. Don't give it away so easily. Mastering silence isn't about suppressing your voice. It's about knowing when your voice is truly needed. The world is full of noise, but the strongest minds know when to remain still. That is power. That is modern Stoicism in action. So the next time someone tries to pull you into their storm, remember this: silence is not surrender. It's a strategy. Use it wisely, and you'll never be controlled again. Number 3. Never seek approval from others. Stop for a moment and ask yourself, how much of your life is dictated by the opinions of others? How often do you hold back your thoughts, your actions, your dreams, simply because you're afraid of what people might say? Seeking approval is like placing chains on your own freedom, allowing others to dictate your worth. A truly unshakable person, one who embodies Stoicism, does not need the validation of others to feel secure. When you constantly seek approval, you hand over your power, making your happiness dependent on external forces that you cannot control. The need to be liked, to be praised, to be accepted by everyone is a silent prison, keeping you from living according to your own principles. But how do you break free? How do you reclaim your mind? First, you must cultivate unshakable belief in yourself. Not blind arrogance, but a deep, reasoned confidence that comes from knowing you have thought through your actions and stand by them. If your decisions align with your values, then why should you need approval? Seneca reminds us, you can be independent of all things once you realize that they are all outside your control, and that includes people's opinions. The moment you recognize that external validation is a fleeting illusion, you gain an inner strength that no one can take from you. No one has the right to dictate your worth, except you. Second, accept that not everyone will like you, and that's perfectly fine. The more you become someone who cannot be controlled, the more some people will resist you. Why? Because many people find comfort in control. If they can't manipulate you, they will reject you. Let them. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic leaders, said, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." Why should the judgment of someone who barely knows you hold more weight than your own self-awareness? Imagine the mental freedom that comes from letting go of the need to be liked. What would you do if you truly stopped caring about pleasing everyone? How much more authentic, courageous, and powerful would you become? Finally, understand that your value is not determined by external opinions. If someone criticizes you, does that suddenly make you less worthy? Number. If someone praises you, does that suddenly make you more valuable? Number. Your worth is intrinsic. It does not fluctuate based on applause or disapproval. A Stoic lesson to remember is this: opinions are just that, opinions. They are not truth. They do not define you. In the end, the greatest approval you need is your own. Ask yourself, do you live in alignment with your principles? Are you true to yourself? If the answer is yes, then what more do you need? Free yourself from the burden of approval, and you will become unshakable. The world does not need another person molded by the expectations of others. It needs someone bold enough to stand firm in their own truth. Will you be that person? Do you live for your own values or for the approval of others? True freedom comes when you stop seeking validation. Drop a comment. My worth isn't up for debate. Let's see who stands strong. Number 4. Learn to set clear boundaries. Setting clear boundaries is not just about protecting yourself from manipulation. It is about valuing your own worth and standing firm in your principles. Manipulators thrive on ambiguity. They probe for weaknesses, testing whether you will yield under pressure. This is why boundaries must be firm, non-negotiable, and communicated with quiet confidence. As Marcus Aurelius wisely said, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If you allow others to dictate your limits, your mind will be colored by their desires instead of your own resolve. The key to true strength lies not in aggression, but in the unshakable clarity of knowing where you stand. One of the most powerful ways to establish boundaries is to say no without excessive justifications. Many people feel the need to explain their refusals, fearing they will be perceived as rude or selfish. But over-explaining is an invitation for manipulation. Those who seek control will use your words against you, twisting your explanations into opportunities for persuasion. A simple, calm no is enough. The Stoics understood that external events are beyond our control, but our reactions are fully within our grasp. By practicing concise, firm communication, you assert your control over your own life, rather than allowing others to dictate your choices. Beyond words, your actions must align with your boundaries. If someone repeatedly engages in negative behavior, whether it's belittling you, draining your energy, or violating your trust, you must create distance. This is not cruelty, it is self-respect. If someone continuously brings toxicity into your life, they are not contributing to your growth. Walking away from unhealthy relationships is not a sign of weakness, but of wisdom. Protecting your energy is not selfishness, it is survival. Guilt is a common weapon used by manipulators to keep you within their grip. They may say you are being unreasonable, too sensitive, or even heartless for setting boundaries. But understand this, no one who truly values you will be angry that you respect yourself. If someone resents your boundaries, it is because they benefited from your lack of them. Do not let guilt manipulate you into submission. You are responsible for your own well-being, and it is not your duty to make others comfortable at the expense of your own peace. In today's fast-paced, hyper-connected world, the need for clear boundaries is more crucial than ever. Social media, work demands, and even personal relationships often blur the lines between obligation and self-care. Without firm boundaries, you may find yourself overwhelmed, constantly available, and emotionally exhausted. It is essential to reclaim your time, space, and mental energy. Setting boundaries does not mean shutting people out. It means defining how you allow them to treat you. And the more you practice this, the more unshakable you become. Ultimately, breaking free from control and becoming unshakable begins with the courage to stand firm in your principles. Remember, the strongest walls are not built with anger, but with quiet, unyielding resolve. Hold your ground, speak your truth, and trust that those who respect you will honor your boundaries. The rest will fade away, leaving you with the clarity and strength to live on your own terms. Number 5. Stay focused on your goals. Breaking free from control and becoming unshakable requires a mind that is disciplined, focused, and immune to distractions. This is one of the great Stoic secrets, understanding that external events, people's opinions and provocations have no power over you unless you give them permission. The moment you allow distractions to dictate your actions, you surrender control. Modern Stoicism teaches us that those who cannot control you will attempt to influence you through subtle means, spreading rumors, provoking emotional reactions, and dragging you into meaningless disputes. Their goal is not always to defeat you outright, but to exhaust your energy, disrupt your focus, and make you lose sight of what truly matters. This is why developing an iron mind is not just an option, it's a necessity. Think about a young entrepreneur, Daniel, who set out to build his own business. He started with passion, discipline, and a clear vision. But as he gained traction, he encountered resistance, not from market competition, but from people around him. Some belittled his efforts, mocking his ambition. Others tried to plant seeds of doubt, questioning his decisions. Then there were those who outright tried to distract him, inviting him to meaningless arguments or trivial drama that had nothing to do with his goals. At first, Daniel felt the urge to respond, to defend himself, to prove them wrong. But then he realized every reaction was a withdrawal from his own energy bank, a step away from his vision. So he made a decision. He would respond with action, not words. He ignored the noise, focused on his growth, and let his success be his answer. This is how you break free. You do not allow yourself to be emotionally hijacked by the opinions and actions of others. How do you maintain this level of focus? First, remember why you started. When your vision is clear, the distractions seem small. Every great achievement comes with resistance, and the moment you allow petty individuals to dictate your actions, you move further away from your goal. Ask yourself, are the opinions of these people worth more than your dreams? Second, recognize that every reaction drains your energy. Every argument, every emotional outburst, every attempt to justify yourself is energy that could be spent on self-improvement. When you engage with negativity, you feed it. When you ignore it, you starve it. A true Stoic operates with detachment, understanding that external chaos does not need to become internal chaos. Third, master the art of ignoring negativity. The moment you stop reacting, toxic people lose their power over you. If they cannot control your emotions, they cannot control you. This is one of the most powerful Stoic rules. Control your mind, and you control your life. At the end of the day, your greatest weapon against control is unshakable focus. The world will always test you, but it is your discipline that determines whether you stay on course or get lost in the distractions. Let people talk, let them provoke, let them try. But do not give them the satisfaction of your reaction. Instead, channel your energy into building something great. The iron mind does not waste time fighting unnecessary battles. It stays locked on the path ahead. The lesson is clear. Your focus is your power, and the only way to break free from control is to refuse to let anything outside yourself dictate your journey. Number 6. Build a strong support network. Breaking free from control and becoming unshakable starts with building a strong support network, because no one thrives in isolation. Those who seek to manipulate you know that a lonely person is easier to bend, easier to shape, easier to control. That's why they try to isolate you, feeding you doubts, making you question yourself, ensuring that you feel alone in your struggles. But the truth is, you are never alone unless you choose to be. When you surround yourself with people who respect you, uplift you, and challenge you to grow, you become untouchable. The Stoics understood this well. Seneca once said, "Associate with those who will make a better man of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve." The people around you shape your mindset, your resilience, and your ability to stand firm in your values. So, ask yourself, who are you allowing into your life? Do they push you forward, or do they keep you tethered to self-doubt and fear? A true support system is not just about numbers, it's about quality. It's about choosing people who see you for who you are and encourage you to become even more. If you want to be unshakable, start by cutting off toxic relationships without hesitation. People who belittle your aspirations, manipulate your emotions, or drain your energy are not your allies. They are obstacles. Why give space in your mind to those who make you feel small? Walking away from toxic relationships isn't about cruelty. It's about self-respect. It's about refusing to let someone else's negativity dictate your reality. Think of it this way. If you had a plant that was struggling to grow because it was surrounded by weeds, would you let it stay there, or would you remove what's stifling its growth? The same principle applies to your life. You deserve to be in an environment that nurtures your strength, not one that suffocates it. But there's another crucial part of this equation. You must also become strong yourself. Like attracts like. If you want to be surrounded by resilient, confident, and self-sufficient people, you must embody those traits yourself. Epictetus taught, "The key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best. But to attract such individuals, you must first become the kind of person who stands firm in their principles, who does not waver in the face of manipulation, who values integrity over approval. That means developing self-discipline, setting firm boundaries, and embracing the Stoic lessons of emotional control. It means choosing reason over impulse, wisdom over fleeting emotions, and self-worth over validation from others. So, the real question is, are you ready to step into your own strength? Are you prepared to build a network of people who align with your highest self, rather than your insecurities? Number 7. Accept that some people will never change. Some people will never change, no matter how much you hope, argue, or try to prove yourself. This is a hard truth, but one that will set you free if you truly accept it. Growth is a lonely road at times, not because you are isolating yourself, but because those around you may not be willing to walk alongside you. If you allow yourself to be weighed down by the need for approval, you are handing over your inner peace to forces beyond your control. Some people resist change because it threatens their sense of identity. They see your progress as a silent judgment of their stagnation. Instead of being inspired, they feel exposed. This is not your burden to carry. Stoic principles teach us that we cannot control how others think or behave, only how we respond. When you understand that your success might trigger insecurity in others, you will no longer take their reactions personally. Their resistance, negativity, or attempts to pull you back are not about you. They are about their own fears and limitations. If you waste time trying to convince them to support you, you risk delaying your own progress. Seneca wisely said, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." If your energy is scattered between proving yourself to others and moving forward, you dilute your power. Instead, focus on your path with unwavering determination. Modern life is filled with these invisible tethers: family members who dismiss your ambitions, friends who subtly undermine your progress, colleagues who resent your drive. If you allow their opinions to dictate your choices, you are voluntarily stepping into a prison of their making. True freedom comes when you break free from the need for validation. In a world obsessed with likes, approval, and fitting in, the truly unshakable person is the one who walks forward without hesitation, indifferent to the opinions of those who refuse to grow. The key is not to resent these people, but to detach emotionally. Resentment keeps you chained to them just as much as seeking their approval does. Accept their nature, wish them well, and continue on your journey. Some may eventually come around, inspired by your unwavering commitment. Others never will. That is not your concern. What matters is that you remain steadfast, knowing that your growth is a reflection of your discipline, not of their understanding. In the end, the strongest, most unshakable individuals are those who have learned to move forward without needing anyone to come with them. Thank you for watching. When people can't control you, they'll try to manipulate, isolate, or undermine you, but only if you let them. The key to freedom is self-control. Master your emotions, set firm boundaries, and stop seeking approval from people who don't matter. If this message resonated, comment "Iron Mind" below. And if you found value, like, share, and subscribe to Stoic Secrets. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. Stay strong, stay focused, and remember, true power is power over yourself. See you next time.